At a grand mansion under a starry sky, a brown-haired woman sits by her unconscious, red-haired husband's bedside, gently wiping his hand. An olive-haired maid tends to the comatose man's leg, her expression somber. The brown-haired woman, Cordelia, maintains a cool and unreadable expression as she watches over him. The maid tries to reassure Lady Cordelia, promising that he will be fine and should wake up soon. Cordelia agrees with a slight, knowing smile as she gazes at her sleeping husband. Taking charge, Cordelia tells the maid to get some sleep, declaring that she will watch over him for the night. The maid, Emily, expresses concern for Cordelia, who is always by his side, but Cordelia gently insists, reminding Emily that he is her husband. After Emily leaves the room, Cordelia decides to step out onto the balcony for some fresh air. As she opens the doors, she tells the departing Emily that she's going to make a birthday wish for her husband. Emily watches her go, thinking with pity how kind Cordelia is and how her own heart aches for her. Alone with the man, Emily notes that it's been 5 long months and sincerely hopes he'll wake up, just as Lady Cordelia wishes. Suddenly, Cordelia rushes back into the room from the balcony in a panic. Outside on the balcony, she looks up at the vast, starry night sky. She clasps her hands tightly together, preparing to make her wish. Addressing the sacred star of the Vasquez family, she fervently asks for her wish to be granted. She reminisces about her innocent childhood wishes for a teddy bear and to become a princess. Recalling her desperate wish to escape poverty at 14, she states she never showed hatred toward the star. Her expression hardens with resentment as she demands the star grant her wish, if it has any conscience. Trembling with emotion, her prayer is interrupted by the shocking sound of blood splattering on the floor. With tears streaming down her face, she screams her true, desperate wish. "Kill my husband, please!" The scene transitions, marking the end of the chapter's introduction. Her shocking outburst is interrupted as she turns, stammering a panicked apology. An older matron storms in, furiously demanding to know what Cordelia has done, while Emily trails behind, apologizing. The matron cries out in alarm, pointing to her son who is now drenched in sweat as Cordelia laments the terrible timing. As the matron and Emily scramble to clean up, Cordelia innocently asks, "What is wrong?" The matron explodes at Cordelia, accusing her of neglecting her husband Craig and pointing out that he's soaking wet. Grabbing Cordelia's hair, the matron viciously insults her, calling her a foolish daughter-in-law. The matron wails dramatically over her poor son, declaring she'll die of worry if he doesn't wake up. While the matron begs Craig to wake up for her sake, Cordelia thinks with cold annoyance, "Seriously, just die already." Cordelia forces a tearful performance, sniffing and calling out Craig's name as the suspicious matron glares at her. The matron curtly orders Cordelia to wipe Craig down before he catches a cold, and she meekly agrees. Calling her useless, the matron commands Cordelia to pray at the temple until dawn for her son's recovery. Forcing a pained smile, Cordelia agrees while internally acknowledging the matron's correct assumption that she's just pretending to worry. The matron storms away, sneering that Cordelia is only acting out of fear of being kicked out now that the count is gone. In her thoughts, the matron scoffs at the prestige of the Vasquez name, one of the 8 sacred noble houses. She glares back at Cordelia, thinking her family, who sold her for a meager sum, is trash, and that Cordelia herself is useless. With a final thought that marrying Cordelia was a huge mistake, the matron slams the door, leaving Cordelia alone and defeated. A single tear falls, rippling through the water and marking a moment of quiet sorrow. In a flashback, a younger Cordelia introduces herself as Cordelia Vasquez. She narrates that her family is one of the 8 noble houses that founded the kingdom of Elsha. Despite her noble lineage, she recalls a childhood spent in misfortune and poverty. She remembers the day her ailing father sold her off for medicine money, overhearing protests that her new husband had 5 mistresses. In the memory, her father silences her pleas, coldly telling her the decision is made and to get ready. Her brother cruelly taunts her, blaming her for her husband's infidelity and telling her to just get married for the family's sake. She recalls a moment of pure despair, realizing that in a world of thorns, the only thing to trust is. Back in the present, Emily apologizes for panicking, but Cordelia calmly reassures her that this is normal. Cordelia tells Emily to rest, but the maid insists on helping clean up the water she spilled, earning a grateful thanks. Sitting by the bed, Cordelia finds a small silver lining, thinking that at least the bedding is safe. She finds a sliver of comfort in the kindness the servants show her, a small mercy in her difficult life. Through a shattered reflection, her determined green eye reveals an unbroken will to endure. The brown-haired woman thinks desperately of escape if Craig would only die, as a red-haired man smirks and assesses her body. Her cruel wedding night begins as the red-haired man introduces two other women, Alicia and Elizabeth, and tells her to get along with them. She recalls the past with disgust, thinking the scum should have died in his horse accident 5 months ago. Fantasizing about her options, she sees a magical beast in the Grim Reaper, resolving to bury her husband no matter what. A maid startles, noticing a twitch from the hand of the man lying in bed. Madam," the maid cries out in excitement. "Your husband's finger moved," leaving the brown-haired woman stunned and teary-eyed. While the maid celebrates that her birthday wish came true, the woman dismisses it as her imagination, thinking it's too sudden. She lets out a pained sigh, a single tear escaping as she watches the bed. The red-haired man groans, no," in his sleep, clearly trapped in a nightmare as he begins to stir. The brown-haired woman glares down, cursing the Vasquez guardian star for this turn of events. She sighs again, her expression filled with dread. With gritted teeth, she silently warns him, "Don't mess with me!" The maid prepares to inform her lady that the Lord has awakened, and the brown-haired woman can only agree reluctantly. Clenching her hands, she fumes at how stubborn he is, even in this state. As the red-haired man sweats in bed, thinking he can't move, the woman stands over him. She transforms her expression into one of gentle concern as her pure wife mode activates. Taking his hand, she gently tells him not to move, reminding him he's been asleep for 5 months since falling from his horse. His annoyed look makes her wonder if her caring act was a little too much. The dazed man asks where he is, and she approaches his bed, calmly telling him it's his room. He struggles to form a word, weakly attempting to recall his name. Feigning concern, she tells him to rest if he can't speak, hiding her own confusion. With great effort, he manages to stammer out the words, "My, na, me." "What is it?" he asks, completely lost, leaving the brown-haired woman utterly shocked by his amnesia. The scene shifts to the exterior of a grand, imposing mansion. Inside, an older woman in a red dress rages that he's finally awake but can't even remember his own name. 2 male advisors bow their heads, admitting they're unsure of his condition either. As the brown-haired woman pleads for patience, the woman in red furiously orders them to fix him now. The woman in red panics, fearing that if news of his condition gets out, relatives will swarm to claim the earldom. While she despairs over his amnesia, the brown-haired woman realizes the situation. Craig has amnesia. A sly smile forms on her face as she thinks this might be her chance after all. She suddenly startles the older woman and her advisor with an idea. As the others look on, baffled, she thinks of Craig, a plan already forming. She boldly confronts the Madame Dowager, declaring that she will be the one to speak with Craig. The Madame Dowager scoffs, but the brown-haired woman insists it's her right as his wife. She suggests that going over their past together might restore his memory, ignoring the Madame Dowager's insult. The 2 advisors eagerly agree, explaining to the Madame Dowager that such stimulation can help restore memories. The advisors enthusiastically endorse her plan, declaring it an excellent approach, while the Madame Dowager glares. The Madame Dowager reluctantly agrees, deciding it must be done before Craig's relatives find out. With a triumphant smile, the brown-haired woman curtsies and promises to act immediately. A dark, determined smile spreads across her face as her plan is set in motion. She triumphantly raises a document into the air, exclaiming, "Found it! The divorce papers!" Hugging the papers to her chest, she celebrates that the day to finally use them has arrived. With a devious look, she plots to trick her clueless husband into signing them. Her true goal is clear: freedom and alimony for all her suffering. She imagines a beautiful future, waving a happy farewell to her miserable life. Stealing her resolve, she decides to get it done quickly, before his memory has any chance to return. Putting on a sweet facade, she approaches his bedside and gently asks how he is feeling. The red-haired man, Craig, looks up at her with a quiet, unreadable expression. He flexes his hand on the blanket, a subtle sign of tension. His face darkens with a deep sense of dread as he thinks to himself, "The worst." The brown-haired woman puts on a sweet face, but internally panics, realizing her husband is in a terrible mood. She resolves to play along for now, and wait for the perfect moment to get him to sign the divorce papers. Sitting by his bed, she hesitates, thinking, but as they silently regard each other, with an overly sweet expression, she clasps her hands together as he watches her with a blank stare. The red-haired man looks at her intently and asks for her name. She feigns a gentle, happy expression as she asks, "Yes?" He asks who she is, and she acts surprised, quickly apologizing and reminding him that he can't remember anything. She introduces herself as his wife, Cordelia, prompting him to ask for her maiden name. While a chibi version of her smugly provides the name Vasquez, he repeats it thoughtfully. An awkward, silent standoff occurs between them, depicted in a simplified, cartoonish style. He turns away, thinking they wouldn't appreciate it, leaving her to wonder if he was sizing her up. She notes that something is different. He used to leer at her, but this new look is one she's never seen. As she wonders if his near-death experience changed him, he suddenly asks about the location of the mansion. He clarifies he means the Abrams mansion, and she explains its location, which he considers a small mercy. She questions his comment, but he curtly dismisses her, telling her to get to the point. Flustered by his directness, she stammers nervously. He points out that she looked disappointed when he woke up, and that she skipped the doctor's examination. He bluntly concludes their marriage was bad and tells her to drop the act, shocking her with his sharp deduction. Stealing her resolve, she decides that if this is how it is, she will settle things with him once and for all. The red-haired man looks on as thorny purple flowers bloom, signifying a tense atmosphere. She declares again with conviction that she is here to put an end to their relationship. She confidently presents a document, telling him to sign it. He calmly looks over and correctly identifies the document as divorce papers. She lies, claiming that he was the one who wanted a divorce before he collapsed. With a skeptical smirk, he questions if he really said that. She doubles down on her lie, claiming he loved Alicia and Elizabeth, while wondering why he's smirking. She holds out the papers again, declaring this is why they must separate. He scoffs at how ridiculous she is and crushes the divorce papers in his hand. He aggressively throws the crumpled papers, causing her to cry out in shock. As she panics over her precious divorce papers, he states that while his memories are gone, he certainly hasn't lost his mind, glaring at her with cold intensity. She looks up, her expression turning nervous and flustered. He reveals he heard about their terrible marriage from an attendant and calls her out for trying to use his condition to get a divorce. Grabbing her arm, he cruelly reminds her that her fallen family paid a fortune to marry into the Vasquez bloodline. He sneers that there was no room for love in their marriage from the start, a truth attack that leaves her reeling. Getting goosebumps, she is stunned by how logical he is and demands to know who he really is. A slow, confident smile spreads across his lips as he repeats her question. He firmly states that divorce is out of the question and offers to tell her a story from his past instead. Defeated for now, she reluctantly agrees, deciding to bide her time and look for a better opportunity. The scene shifts as he begins his story, mentioning a rumor he heard. He brings up a rumor that she was an illegitimate child at 15, but then abruptly cuts the conversation short for the day. She protests, but he coldly tells her to stop, claiming he'll get tired if he has to listen to her any longer. She wonders why he seems to hate his own past so much, even without his memories. Seeing him sweat, she dismisses his attitude as simple grumpiness from his long coma. As she prepares to leave, he stops her, saying he has a request. He asks her to send a letter for him, but refuses to give any details, commanding her to just do it. Her patience finally snaps as she seethes with silent rage. She explodes, refusing to be ordered around and telling him to do it himself, calling him rude for his attitude. Laughing mockingly, she reminds him she's not his attendant and taunts him about his memory loss. He coldly points out that no one has come to see him, questioning who else he could trust to send a letter, while she thinks she could just as easily intercept it. With a smirk, he points out she's the same woman who brought divorce papers the moment he woke up, and the one struggling for power. She mentally curses, annoyed by how exceptionally sharp he is. She desperately shoves the crumpled papers at him, offering to send his letter if he'll just sign, but he thinks the two requests are not comparable. She looks on in disbelief as he coolly refuses her offer. He rubs his forehead with a sigh, noting how she seems to really want a divorce. Holding the papers, she quietly states that she came to this house as a bride sold off for money. Recalling the last year of hell, she pleads with him to let her go, arguing he has no feelings for her and can't even remember who she is. She clutches the document to her chest, her expression filled with desperate hope. He remains silent, thoughtfully rubbing his hair as he considers her plea. The scene transitions to a peaceful, starry night sky above the trees. Her blue-heeled shoes step firmly onto a stone ledge. She arrives at a rooftop gazebo, wondering why a letter needs to be sent from such a strange place. He proposes a deal. For every request she completes, he'll write one letter of his name on the divorce papers. He instructs her to make sure she throws the letter from the top of the castle tonight. Annoyed, she clutches the letter and calculates that with Craig being 5 letters, she has 4 more of these tasks to go. Bracing against the wind on the high ledge, she tells herself this is all for the sake of the divorce. Looking at the grand estate below, she thinks that he should probably get his head checked again. A chibi version of her is baffled by his vague instruction to simply launch the letter. Unable to resist, her curiosity wins, and she eagerly unfolds the letter. She stares at the page in confusion, realizing she can't read the script, and wondering if it's written in code. She questions how any of this makes sense, thinking a woman in love wouldn't send a coded letter, as she recalls their tense conversation about his supposed feelings. She thoughtfully holds the letter, pondering the perplexing situation. Deciding the strange letter isn't her business, she resolves to finish the task quickly and get back. As she releases the letter, it begins to glow with an ethereal blue light and float gracefully downwards. She gasps, her eyes widening in shock at the unexpected magic. Wah! The letter erupts in a blinding flash of light, transforming into a massive, glowing white serpent that soars into the sky. Staring in utter disbelief, she identifies the magical creature as a snake with white scales. The scene shifts to the exterior of a grand, stately mansion during the day. As a maid pours her tea, Cordelia asks about a certain person's cause of death. The maid explains that officially it's being called an accident, but nobody seems to believe that. Cordelia sips her tea thoughtfully, recalling that the head of the Atri family was a powerful mage, making an accident unlikely. Leaning in close, the maid whispers a shocking rumor that the second son killed his brother to take over as head of the family. Cordelia's eyes widen in shock as she processes the scandalous information. The maid adds that the second son has already petitioned the Council of Nobles for the inheritance, even before the funeral has been held. Cordelia discreetly hands the maid a pouch of coins, thanking her for the valuable information. Giving a thumbs up, the maid confidently assures her, "Leave it to me," before departing with the tea cart. Now alone, Cordelia takes a quiet sip of tea, her expression serious and contemplative. A vision of a blonde-haired man, the mage, appears, surrounded by a complex magical circle. She connects the timing. A powerful mage died in an inheritance dispute at the very same moment Craig suddenly woke up. Recognizing the Atri family crest, she realizes Craig used their signature white serpent script for his letter. The image of the ethereal white serpent flying from the gazebo flashes through her mind. Staring at her husband in bed, a startling theory forms. The person inside Craig right now is. Her hand tightens on her teacup as she realizes that if her theory is true, this could be her perfect chance. She beams with joy, surrounded by a pink, flowery aura as she imagines her newfound opportunity. Her confidence wavers as she questions her theory, wondering if soul transfer magic is even possible, though she concedes he was a great mage. Fine. Deciding she's had enough of guessing, she abruptly stands, determined to ask him directly. The scene shifts to a bright, sunlit room with large windows. The red-haired man sits on the edge of the bed, now dressed, looking down with a weary expression. Damn it, he thinks, panting with exertion as he laments his inability to move this new body the way he wants. As she enters asking how he is, he snaps back, angrily demanding to know why she didn't knock. She apologizes for her habit of checking on him, privately marveling that he can already move when the doctor called it a miracle. The red-haired man looks down thoughtfully, asking about the letter. With a placid smile, Cordelia confirms she sent it, thinking to herself that the real Craig would have overreacted in pain. He commends her with a stoic, "good work," and she internally notes that his irritating arrogance has a certain nobility that feels different. As he walks away from the bed, he thinks that this body is useless, even if it heals completely. Cordelia reminds him of his old boasts about his face attracting women, and he turns back in shock, demanding to know what she just said. He stares at her, a blush creeping across his face as he processes her words. Looking at his reflection in a hand mirror, he sweats nervously, wondering if he really said something so arrogant with his face. Cordelia smugly observes that he must be a noble soul trapped in a lowly body, which explains his fury. Before asking if he's eaten, he recoils in disgust, calling the soup slop, and wondering if everyone is brain dead. while she calmly insists he must eat to regain his strength. He reluctantly agrees with a fine, before pointedly asking why she came to see him. Determined to get the truth, Cordelia smiles, deciding to ask him about his childhood. As she leans over him, he looks up and begins to speak. He observes her closely, thinking she's smarter than he expected. She continues, stating that his tutor resigned at 11, having nothing more to teach, leaving him speechless. Finishing her account, she declares he became the youngest family head at 17, a life worthy of the Atri name, and stares him down. He rises from the bed, his body radiating a dark, menacing aura as he furiously demands to know what she is. Grabbing her shoulders, he gets in her face and aggressively asks if she's working for Maximilian as she stammers in fear. He grimly concludes that his enemy's reach is vast, while a terrified chibi Cordelia realizes she angered him by being too accurate. Ugh! He suddenly bends over, clutching his chest in pain, much to her surprise. As he stumbles backward, she worriedly asks if he's all right. He shoves her reaching hand away, yelling, "Don't touch me!" and cursing the useless body that's failing him. She falls back in fear as he screams at her to shut up and not move a finger. Declaring he'll gather enough strength to kill one person, he unleashes a powerful wave of blue fire magic, and Cordelia wonders if that's what it is. Whoa! Genuinely impressed, she exclaims how incredible it is that he can use magic in a different body, much to his flustered surprise. He angrily shouts that it's none of her business, since she's going to die anyway, launching a magical attack as she pleads for her life. Shouting that he's not her enemy, his blast of ice magic shatters the wall behind her as she dives for cover. He stares in disbelief, realizing she somehow dodged his attack. Still on the floor, but now surrounded by her own white aura, she looks up at him and asks, "What?" With blue flames dancing in his hand, he reveals he launched the attack along a trajectory invisible to normal people and demands to know what she is. Fearing for her life, she frantically insists that she isn't hiding anything from him. She stands and proclaims that she can see magic power, and that's all there is to it. She explains that when she threw the letter, she saw the Atri family crest in its magic, which is how she discovered his identity. He scoffs in disbelief, finding it hard to believe she could sense the crest from its magic, an ability not even 1 in 10,000 people possess. Threateningly, he tells her she might as well die, his hand glowing with magic, as she collapses to the floor in terror. Peeking over the edge of the bed, she timidly asks if this is a test, and he challenges her to prove her ability by guessing what he creates. She stares with wide, nervous eyes, bracing herself for his magical test. As a magical constellation forms, a chibi version of her nervously wonders if it's a goat or a puppy. He confirms it's a sheep, amazed at her accuracy, while she pops up from behind the bed, triumphantly proclaiming she wasn't lying. He looks away, a flicker of contemplation on his face now that her ability has been proven. With a sly look, she mentions her own marriage was a transaction for money, subtly drawing a parallel between their constrained circumstances. He concedes that she's not one of Maximilian's apostles, prompting her to ask if Maximilian is the brother who killed him. He explodes in fury, grabbing her and shouting, "I'm not dead!" exclamation mark, as she inwardly panics at his scary reaction to a simple rumor. He asks what she means by rumors, and she confirms they've already spread to the capital. She explains the rumor, that the younger brother murdered the family head and has already petitioned for succession, enraging him further. Playing the part of a supportive wife, she exclaims how outrageous it is, especially since he, the true lord, has just woken up. In a glowing bubble, she asks if he finally believes that she isn't involved in the plot against him. Pointing a finger with a sly smile, she adds that his brother must have anticipated this, which is why he bribed her a year ago to marry him. Cordelia explains that his situation just doesn't make any sense, while the red-haired man looks on, unimpressed. He responds to her lengthy explanation with a curt and dismissive, "So?" His bluntness leaves her utterly baffled, letting out a confused, "Huh?" He asks what she wants from him, guessing a divorce, but she counters that her divorce is trivial compared to his problems. Taken aback, he asks if she is defying him as she stands before him with a confident smile. Blushing, Cordelia sweetly explains that 4 favors for the 4 letters in her name feels unfair and proposes they work together instead. He scoffs at her proposal, questioning why she thinks he would ever trust her enough to be partners. In acute chibi form, she coyly asks if he would have given the letter to someone he couldn't trust, leaving him speechless. He contemplates that killing her might be the easiest way to keep her quiet, as the terrified Cordelia realizes one wrong move could be fatal. She presses her advantage, pointing out that he doesn't have a single person he can trust in the castle. With renewed vigor, Cordelia clenches her fists and urges him to work with her instead of trying to handle things alone. Stroking his chin thoughtfully, he asks her to clarify if she'll help him until he returns to the House of Atri. She happily agrees to be his helper, with the condition that he must guarantee her safety in return. A sly smile plays on his lips as he calls her offer surprisingly generous, before asking what her condition is. Internally celebrating her victory, Cordelia confidently makes her demand, "Please make me your disciple." His response is a cold, final, and crushing, "Get lost." Shocked, she grabs his shirt, protesting that it's a simple condition and that he shouldn't underestimate magic's difficulty. As she insists he hasn't even tried to teach her, a chibi version of him skeptically asks if she's confident she can keep up. She proudly declares that she was once called a child prodigy, but he dismissively wonders if she was just a slightly clever country girl. Her expression shifts to one of profound sadness, tears welling in her eyes as she prepares to share a painful memory. Clutching her dress, she tearfully explains that her mother died before she could help and that she wants to learn healing magic to save her father. Dropping the act with a bright smile, Cordelia reveals her true motive: to learn magic to escape her reality and become self-sufficient after their divorce. She lays out her grand plan, starting with using her alimony to open her own magic tool shop. Imagining herself as a powerful magic appraiser, she explains that with her sight and magical ability, she could make a fortune. He watches with his arms crossed as she passionately declares her commitment with a resounding yes. She clarifies she only needs simple support spells, prompting him to ask if she plans to return to the Vasquez family after the divorce. With a sad look, she asks if he really thinks she'd return to the family that sold her, hoping he'll understand her true desire. He flatly refuses her request with a sharp no, leaving her shocked and demanding an explanation. His expression darkens with contempt as he calls the idea of a disciple of Leonard Atri becoming a lowly appraiser insulting. He declares he would rather teach a stray dog than a disciple who would tarnish his name, his insult hitting her like a physical blow. Forcing herself to endure the insult, she vows not to let the chance slip away and promises to keep his identity as her teacher a secret. The sun sets over the grand estate, casting long shadows and marking the end of a difficult day. Utterly defeated and exhausted by his constant rejections, Cordelia looks like a wreck. Finally losing her temper, she stomps and screams about how stubborn he is, but he simply tells her to get out, as he's tired. Composing herself, she vows not to give up on this chance, politely retreating for the day as he mutters that she's a pain. With a cheerful smile, she offers him a replacement meal, but he once again tells her to just get out. She smugly notes that he won't give in, provoking him into demanding what she means by that. Giggling, she expresses her gladness that his hearing is fine, before wishing him good night and making a swift exit. Alone once more, he sighs in bed, exasperated by the exhausting woman. Suddenly, he clutches his chest, a sharp pain shooting through him. He wonders if the strain is from using magic earlier, cursing the weakness of Craig's body. His eyes narrow with pure hatred as he thinks of his enemy, cursing, "Damn it, Maximilian, if it wasn't for that bastard." A bloody flashback of his apparent murder surfaces as he imagines his foe laughing, and he vows that Maximilian's laughter won't last long. Lying in bed, his fists clench with rage as he silently swears to kill Maximilian with his own two hands. A new day begins, and Cordelia returns, waving with boundless, cheerful energy. She greets him enthusiastically, asking if he's enjoying his stay and announcing she has brought him snacks. Presenting a tray of tea and sweets, she asks if he was bored without her, much to his visible irritation. A cute illustration depicts her joyful pestering and his blushing, ear-plugging annoyance. The scene shifts to a wide, establishing shot of the grand and imposing mansion. The red-haired man sighs heavily, asking Cordelia if she ever gets bored visiting him every single day. With a blissful, blushing smile, she replies that she could never be bored when it's her husband she's coming to see. He angrily rejects the husband title, shouting that if begging worked, everyone would be a magician, while she thinks that she hasn't even said anything yet. Changing her approach, Cordelia brightly asks about breakfast, but he bluntly tells her he'll pass and to stop calling him dear. Completely ignoring him, she invites him to eat and try the new chef, just as the chef herself arrives, much to his utter disbelief and frustration. As a maid brings a food cart, Cordelia presents a bowl of soup to him in bed, ready to begin the meal. She tries to feed him herself, explaining it's too hot, but he recoils in disgust and shouts that he is not eating it. She pleads with him to have just one bite, but he yells back that he doesn't want it, ordering her to stop. Enraged by her persistence, he furiously knocks the bowl away, splashing the hot soup on her hand and making her cry out, "Ouch." Cordelia clutches her burned hand, wincing in pain as he stares at her in silence. A worried maid points out Lady Cordelia's injured hand, but Cordelia insists she's fine and asks the maid to take the plate back. The maid reluctantly agrees to leave, telling Cordelia to call if she needs anything. With a sly grin, Cordelia turns back to the red-haired man, cheerfully offering him some of her soup as an apology for the incident. She leans in close to him, asking yes. As he begins to speak, he grittily asks when she'll stop being so stubborn, clarifying that he doesn't want her coming since it's troublesome for her, which catches her off guard. Flustered, she explains that the atmosphere around him is very comfortable for her, but he scoffs that all he does is reject her. She smiles sweetly, listing his positive traits. He doesn't get violent or play with other lovers in front of her. His expression softens slightly as he listens to her surprisingly simple standards. She sweetly asks if he can just give her company, saying she doesn't care about learning magic anymore. Holding her injured hand to her chest, she earnestly tells him that talking to him makes her feel human. He looks at her with a new, thoughtful expression, seemingly moved by her words. He suddenly demands her right hand, leaving her completely baffled by the request. Shock, he forcefully grabs her hand with a plop, yelling for it, as she comically turns into a startled catgirl. A soft green magical glow emanates from his hands as he holds her burned one. Whoa! She watches in awe, realizing he's using healing magic on her injury. The magic fades, leaving her hand perfectly healed, and a small chibi version of her realizes with amazement that the burn has vanished. Kya! She cheers that it doesn't hurt anymore, but he coldly tells her to get out. Confused by his abrupt dismissal, she can only wonder why, as he reiterates that he's tired and wants her to leave. Eek! She flinches in fear as he glares at her, reminding her that he told her he wasn't going to eat. Panicked, she agrees to clean up after he's done and quickly flees the room. Pausing at the doorway, she turns back as if she has one more thing to say. A warm, happy smile spreads across her face as she's overcome with a feeling of joy. He watches her leave with a conflicted and weary expression. Running a hand through his hair in frustration, he wonders how she can be grinning when he was the one who burned her. Alone in his room, he has a sudden idea. He picks up a glass of water from his bedside table. With a deliberate motion, he tips the glass and pours the water onto the floor. The spilled water pools beside his bed, shattering the glass. The pool of water begins to bubble and glow, with a sparkling blue magic. The magical water rises from the floor, forming a swirling column in front of him. The water takes on a human shape, and he asks the water spirit if it has completed the task he assigned. The water forms the face of an elderly man with a mustache who confidently confirms he has. Fully formed, the man introduces himself as Baron Langshaw, who has faithfully followed Sir Leonard's orders. Leonard teases the Baron for crying earlier, but the older man simply chalks it up to his age. Getting serious, Leonard asks the Baron for the status report after checking on the coffin. The Baron explains that the lack of a body is preventing a funeral and causing a rift in the Atri family, while Leonard correctly assumes his brother won't be fooled easily. Teask. Leonard listens as the Baron details the situation. One side claims Lammy is dead, while Maximilian and his allies remain wary. The Baron is disappointed that Demoiselle and Lammy turned on him so easily. Leonard seethes with rage, agreeing with the Baron and vowing that once he gets his own body back, he will never forgive that traitor. The Baron adds that Lord Mervyn and Bersay don't support Maximilian's claim, prompting Leonard to excitedly ask if he brought the thing. The Baron presents a small vial, confirming he brought the magic potion, as Leonard laments needing to rely on it due to his current body's tattered condition. Gulp with determination, the red-haired man drinks the potion from its vial. Baron Langshaw worriedly tells him that while his actions are understandable, he's concerned someone might see him. The red-haired man closes his eyes, thinking that something bad might happen if he doesn't take this risk. With a confident smirk, he holds the now empty vial, the potion already taking effect. The Baron reports that Sir Bers and Sir Mervyn are publicly claiming that Maximilian is not suitable to become the head of the house. The red-haired man states that this is natural, since they've sworn to sacrifice their lives for him, to which a chibi version of the Baron eagerly adds, Me too. The Baron touches his chin, overcome with emotion as he declares he's always prepared to sacrifice his heart for Lord Leonard. Unimpressed, Leonard crosses his arms and dryly calls the Baron a promising one. In a cute chibi sequence, the Baron thanks him for the praise while Leonard simply grunts, HMPH. The Baron changes the subject, asking Leonard when he plans on telling everyone that he's actually alive. Leonard looks down thoughtfully, deciding that now isn't a good time since they still don't know what Maximilian has up his sleeve. The Baron warns that Maximilian is likely giving orders to Leonard's own loyal followers, adding that he's already spotted several spies lurking around. Leonard orders the Baron to stay away for the time being and to focus on finding his real body. In a dark vision, Leonard explains that without a body, there can be no funeral, which would allow Maximilian to seize control of the assembly and the family as he planned. The Baron informs Leonard that he has secured personnel for a search and orders him to go lead them, to which Leonard agrees. The Baron hands Leonard a report, confirming he has the information on the Abrams family that was requested. Reviewing the document, the Baron notes the family's excessively lavish lifestyle and agrees with Leonard's assessment that they will soon collapse on their own. The report details how Helena Adams and her younger brother have been embezzling funds, taking bribes, and selling tax collection rights, showing them greedily hoarding gold. Leonard smirks with amusement, wondering how the woman managed to get servants involved in her dirty schemes. The Baron confirms that similar incidents have happened with others, expressing his astonishment that the family has managed to survive this long. With a cunning smile, Leonard declares the situation is perfect for faking his death, and that he'll make good use of the family while playing the part of a count. The Baron claps enthusiastically as Leonard looks on with a pensive, questioning expression. Leonard changes the subject, asking about the Countess who was just there, clarifying he means Cordelia Vasquez. The Baron smiles, suggesting they try to bring her to their side because he senses she's a clever person, causing a tiny, shocked Leonard to yell, "Ha! Are you serious?" The Baron argues that Cordelia would be a valuable ally since he can't always be there, but Leonard angrily dismisses the idea, insisting he can protect himself despite his weakened state. Looking at the report, the Baron mentions that he was already wondering if she had any connection to Maximilian. Leonard dismisses the Baron's concerns, suggesting there's information he has yet to obtain, and the Baron concedes that might be the case. Looking down, Leonard finds it strange, unable to believe he encountered a human capable of seeing magical energy. Seen through the window, the Baron reacts with shock, asking if he means the Countess, to which Leonard simply confirms, yeah. A promotional image features a red-haired woman with a defiant and intense gaze. The Baron is astounded, exclaiming that even the great mage Rachel could only sense magic, not see it, and that Cordelia's ability could turn the entire continent into chaos. Leonard admits it's shocking, but wonders if it's all just a coincidence, pondering how this woman became his wife and now insists on being his apprentice. The Baron theorizes that she might be a spy who knew which body Leonard would possess and married its owner as part of a plan. A close-up of Leonard's sharp purple eye reveals his deep concentration as he considers the Baron's words. With a knowing smile, the Baron extends his hand and declares there is no such thing as a coincidence for a mage. Leonard listens intently, as the Baron concludes that their meeting is a fate that cannot be defied. The Baron seems to have a realization, but Leonard's indifference cuts him off, leaving the old man comically confused. Changing the subject entirely, Leonard complains that he's starving and demands food, prompting a flustered Baron to quickly agree. As the Baron magically summons a meal, he tells Leonard to endure a little longer, but Leonard retorts that the food in this place is disgusting. The Baron calls Leonard a difficult person, but Leonard snaps back, telling him to shut up before he loses his appetite for the steak dinner. A golden fork cuts into a piece of cooked meat. Leonard lifts the piece of steak to his lips. He eats with a subtle expression of satisfaction. The Baron watches, his eyes welling up with happy tears. With his cheeks full, Leonard looks over at the Baron in confusion. Why? As the Baron begins to sob, Leonard asks why he's crying in the middle of a meal. Wiping his eyes, the Baron confesses that seeing Leonard eat in his actual form finally makes him believe he's truly alive. He recounts the despair he felt upon hearing of Leonard's death, admitting that he would have taken his own life if not for the letter. The emotional moment passes, and the two men stand together in the quiet bedroom. Leonard remains silent, his expression calm and thoughtful. Pausing his meal, Leonard summons the Baron, who respectfully answers his lord's call. With a flash of intense purple light in his eyes, Leonard crushes the golden fork in his hand. He looks ahead with determination, promising the Baron that when the time comes, he will be the one by his side. The Baron places a hand over his heart, bowing his head as he accepts the honor, declaring, "Your wish is my command." The scene shifts to the exterior of a massive, stately mansion under a bright, clear sky. Inside, Cordelia encourages the red-haired man, but he angrily rebuffs her, yelling that she shouldn't treat him like a child. Her encouragement is met with a bright, sunny smile as she claps her hands together, surrounded by daffodils. He scowls with annoyance, asking if she's trying to ignore his words again. In a cute chibi sequence, she denies it, but he can only think to himself, I hate you." He grabs her hands, and they share a tense, silent moment. Suddenly, a woman in a red and gold gown bursts into the room, ecstatically calling out for her son Craig. As he holds Cordelia's hands, the woman's excited voice interrupts their moment. The woman rushes toward them as Cordelia quickly curtsies in greeting. The woman expresses her relief that he's recovered enough to walk, though he looks less than thrilled by her presence. Fifth, Cordelia hides a laugh, thinking to herself that he really has gotten much better and can even walk a bit now. The woman gives a sly smile, telling him his recovery is truly wonderful. She asks if he's regained his memory and remembers who she is, but he internally notes that she looks like she can't even be bothered to deal with him. Deciding he should respond, he turns to face her, only for her to pull him and Cordelia into a group hug, exclaiming, "My!" The woman happily declares that his personality hasn't changed, despite his amnesia, while Cordelia privately thinks Craig never had any manners to begin with. The woman expresses confidence that things will go smoothly when Jared arrives, prompting a confused Craig to ask who Jared is. She clarifies that Jared Abrams is his cousin, as Cordelia listens with a concerned expression. Calling Jared a dog who sniffed out rumors, she warns Craig that he must show he's alive and well so his cousin doesn't steal his title. Angrily grabbing her arm, he tells her he can manage on his own, and to stop troubling her. He pushes her away, declaring that he's tired and shocking her with his abruptness. Ordering Cordelia to help Craig rest, the woman turns to leave, promising to check on him again soon. HMPH. As she walks away, the woman thinks he's being awfully smug. Bam! The ornate double doors slam shut, leaving them alone. Now seated, he wonders why that woman is pretending they're so close when they were never on good terms. Cordelia suggests that with her own husband gone, she now has no one left to cling to but him, a revelation he seems to accept. She smiles, remarking that his recovery is truly astonishing. He dismisses her praise, claiming he can barely walk for an hour. Cordelia reminds him that the doctor called it a miracle he could even stand, prompting him to muse that it's a fitting word for a body that was supposed to be dead. Her eyes widen in shock as she overhears him, questioning his comment about being supposed to be dead. He smirks, casually remarking that out of all the corpses available, this one just happened to match his timing. What? A chibi version of Cordelia freaks out, while a chibi version of him looks on with irritation. A wave of relief washes over Cordelia as she smiles, thinking that if her husband is truly dead, it's a good thing. He accuses her of being a cruel woman for showing so much joy, but she angrily retorts that he's the cruel one. He argues that he's more human than her, a grieving widow relieved by her husband's death, but she fires back that he mercilessly turned her away when she begged for magic lessons. She accuses him of treating magic like a game, but he reminds her that she admitted she has talent and questions why she'd let it go to waste. Their argument continues in chibi form, with him mocking her as a prodigy and her pleading for him to reconsider, insisting her ability to see mana gives her a head start. He suddenly grabs her wrist, silencing her and causing her to flinch in surprise. Leaning in close, he reminds her that one must begin learning magic by age 10, while she nervously begs for just one chance. He gently lifts her chin, his expression serious as he tells her that for someone trying to learn magic, she is simply too old, he declares, the word landing with the force of a shattering blow. He coldly tells her to never bring the subject up again, leaving a small, trembling Cordelia devastated in his wake. With tears in her eyes, she explains she never wanted to be a great mage, just to use a little magic. He snaps, calling her persistent, and scoffing at the idea of just a little, saying any disciple of his would have to earn at least 1 star. Confused, she asks what a star is, but he dismisses her, saying it's pointless to argue with someone so ignorant. Declaring he's done and needs rest, he walks away, leaving her standing alone as she suddenly seems to remember something important. Annoyed, the red-haired man internally fumes that she's ignoring him again, vowing to stop her this time as he mentions Lady Lily's impending arrival. Cordelia explains that Lily is his half-sister, who is now the Countess of Dahlia but once had feelings for him. As he walks away with a cane, Cordelia cheerfully adds that Lily now absolutely hates him more than anyone in the world. He turns back, completely bewildered, asking why he would stab a woman he'd called out to meet, leaving Cordelia equally confused. A memory flashes, showing his hand crackling with magical energy over a line of thorns as Cordelia's eye widens in realization. The vision reveals a bloody dagger, dripping with fresh blood. Cordelia quickly dismisses the idea, assuring him that Lily would never do such a thing, and simply dislikes her because she's his wife. Her expression hardens as she questions why his brother killed him, arguing that the council would never approve the succession in a case of murder. He calmly replies that the council wouldn't leave the Aitre family's seat empty forever, implying it's only a matter of time. He clenches his fist, declaring this is why he must return to his original body as soon as possible. Expressing her sympathy, Cordelia wishes there was a way she could help him as he looks down in thought. She eagerly suggests she could be of great help if she served as his disciple, staying by his side to support him. With a hopeful glimmer in her eyes, she imagines her helpful future as he watches her from the side. Kia, he smirks, summoning a ball of blue magic that terrifies a chibi Cordelia into a hasty apology and retreat. As she flees the room shouting, "Good night!" the scene transitions to an evening view of the grand mansion. The setting shifts to a large wooden stable under a clear blue sky. Inside, Cordelia consults with her dog, Roddy, wondering what she should do. Seeing Roddy has finished his food, she kneels down and asks if the portion wasn't enough. She stands to get more meat, but Roddy suddenly latches onto her dress, stopping her. As the dog growls and pulls at her skirt, a concerned Cordelia asks what's wrong. Her eyes widen in alarm at her dog's strange and urgent behavior. Woof, woof! Roddy continues to bark and tug at her dress, causing Cordelia to ask again what's wrong. Arf, woof! Her dog ignores her, barking insistently at a nearby water trough. Cordelia looks puzzled, wondering if she just imagined someone calling her name. Ah! A voice announces its arrival, and Cordelia is stunned to see a creature made of water bubbling up from the trough. The water creature asks her to wait as a tiny, panicked Cordelia realizes the mass of water is alive and moving. A playful chibi version of the Baron emerges from the water, making a grand announcement. Completely shocked, Cordelia grabs her arm and demands to know who he is. The chibi figure bows elegantly, introducing himself as Baron Longshaw, Lord Leonard's loyal chief servant, and, he clarifies, a human. Cordelia looks skeptical, repeating the name Leonard with uncertainty. She asks if he's referring to the head of the Aitre family, and the Baron confirms that she knows of him. She erupts in fury, ranting that he must mean Leonardo Aitre, the inconsiderate man who trashes her cooking every day. The Baron looks away sheepishly, unable to deny her angry accusations. Cordelia's mood instantly brightens as she assumes Leonard sent him as a messenger to make her his disciple, eagerly asking if he called for her. The Baron sadly informs her that Lord Leonard doesn't know he's there, prompting a disappointed Cordelia to ask what he wants. He explains that while he knows it's impolite, he has come with an offer to help her, which she questions. As he looks up at her with a gentle expression, she remains silent and listens. Huh? The Baron is taken aback when she asks him why she should accept his help. With a confident look, Cordelia states that she must confirm his motive before she can accept his assistance. Oh. The Baron smiles, thinking to himself that she is quite sharp. Petting her dog, Cordelia tells the Baron he's mistaken, insisting that Leonard is actually desperate to keep her away. The Baron compliments her, calling it remarkable that she's managed to survive despite knowing Lord Leonard's true identity, leaving her confused. Remembering Leonard's threatening aura, Cordelia realizes he had the power to kill her and feels relieved she was able to change his mind. She points out that since he came secretly, he must be acting without Leonard's permission. The Baron explains Leonard's perilous situation, revealing that he will lose his life if his enemy, Maximilian, discovers his location. He continues, explaining that other noble families would also seize any chance to assassinate Leonard, whose current body has already been weakened by poison. Cordelia questions the need for her help when he's already there, but the Baron explains he cannot always be present to protect his lord. He elaborates that he's often away, leaving Leonard vulnerable, and notes that if Cordelia decided to poison his meal, he would be unable to stop her. Cordelia eyes him suspiciously, suggesting his offer sounds less like helping Leonard and more like ensuring she doesn't harm him. The Baron agrees with Cordelia's sharp assessment, while a chibi Cordelia insists a kind person like her would never poison someone. With a sad laugh, the Baron apologizes, explaining he struggles to trust others because the last time he trusted someone's goodwill, he lost Lord Leonard. Cordelia listens with a somber expression as he reveals that Leonard lost his life because someone betrayed him. Leaning on her hand, Cordelia shrewdly summarizes his plan. If she becomes Leonard's disciple, she won't be able to harm him, a fact the Baron confirms. She then coldly asks if it wouldn't be faster to just kill her, a suggestion that horrifies the Baron. The Baron sighs, explaining that Lord Leonard wants a peaceful life, so they decided it was better to place an ally within the household. Changing tactics, Cordelia asks for Leonard's weaknesses to blackmail him into accepting her, but the Baron instead offers to teach her how to serve him long term. She groans in frustration, revealing she just wants to learn magic quickly to become a magic appraiser, a declaration that stuns the Baron. The Baron erupts, declaring her becoming a magic appraiser is unthinkable because such menial work would destroy all of Lord Leonard's prestige. Annoyed, Cordelia notes his reaction is just like Leonard's and questions if her ambition is truly such a big deal. Composing himself, the Baron calmly assures Lady Cordelia that she will understand his reasoning once she is able to use magic. Cordelia quietly considers his words, a thoughtful expression on her face. Ooh! As Roddy howls, the Baron reassures her that Lord Leonard doesn't think poorly of her, prompting a skeptical Cordelia to ask for his reasoning. Cordelia asks what she should do, and the Baron states she needn't do anything, as Lord Leonard wouldn't easily accept a disciple anyway. Her face falls in disappointment as she clarifies if she's meant to just stay quiet and do nothing. The Baron cryptically quotes the fable of the sun and the wind, suggesting that compassion is the only way to melt Lord Leonard's heart. An illustration shows an angry sun trying to force a shirtless man to undress as Cordelia looks on, unimpressed, admitting she knows nothing about the man she resents. Her expression hardens as she questions how she can feel compassion for a man with no blood or tears, her anger growing until the Baron calls her name. Startled, Cordelia looks up to find the red-haired man standing right behind her, having overheard her conversation. Panicked, she quickly claims she was just feeding her dog, Roddy. He dismissively asks if she means the stray dog before turning to leave, allowing her a moment of relief. The red-haired servant standing nearby points out that there are no other dogs in the castle, causing Cordelia to sigh in understanding. As the servant expresses his shock, Cordelia's eyes widen in sudden dawning realization. She internally questions the Baron's advice, wondering if she's really supposed to stir up sympathy for him. A memory flashes of a cheerful Cordelia asking her husband, Craig, how he enjoyed his meal. Another memory shows her happily offering to take letters for a flustered Craig. The memories continue, showing Craig repeatedly ordering her to get out and refusing her help. In a final flashback, Craig screams for her to leave as she stands by with a serene smile. Back in the present, Cordelia thinks to herself that she's making progress, having managed to stay a little longer than before. Her thoughts are interrupted as a maid rushes up behind her, breathlessly calling out Lady Cordelia, whom she recognizes as Emily. Emily urgently announces there's a problem, leaving Cordelia to wonder what could be wrong. A maid rushes toward her, panting as she calls for Lady Cordelia, who identifies the girl as Emily. With a worried expression, Emily announces that there is a problem, piquing Cordelia's curiosity. Cordelia holds the trembling maid by the shoulders, asking what happened, but Emily can only stammer. Emily blurts out that Countess Dahlia is arriving any minute, causing Cordelia to look back at her in confusion. Relieved, Cordelia asks if that's all she's panicking about, but Emily insists the Countess's meanness and long visit have terrified everyone. Emily asks if she isn't worried, but Cordelia calmly states it's not proper for her to show emotion, and that the guests will leave eventually. Once alone, Cordelia's face darkens as she admits no one hates Lily more than her, though she finds the staff's reaction over the top. The scene shifts to the mansion exterior, where voices exchange greetings, welcoming Lily home. Inside, Lily is greeted by her mother, who chides her for not visiting sooner. Lily apologizes, explaining she plans to stay for a while. Cordelia approaches and offers a polite curtsy, greeting her with a simple, "Good day, Lily." Lily scoffs dismissively, insulting Cordelia by saying she's gotten fat and lazy while her husband is sick. With a subtle, knowing smile, Cordelia thinks to herself that the ordeal has finally begun. Lily taunts that Cordelia is lucky Craig is alive, or else she'd have an excuse to kick her out, forcing Cordelia to silently resolve to endure it. Leaning in close, Lily sees that Cordelia should have never been accepted into the Abrams family, while Cordelia reminds herself not to talk back. Cordelia responds with a bright smile, thanking Lily for her visit, which only makes the other woman angrier. Lily's mother approaches and asks about Craig's condition, prompting Lily to report that Cordelia didn't take the bait. Sighing, the mother rubs her temple, complaining that while Craig's body is better, his mind and memory are gone. Lily asks if the situation is serious, and her mother confirms it's complicated, especially with others already vying for his title. Declaring she can't wait, Lily storms past them, determined to see Craig immediately as her mother calls after her. As Lily runs off, her mother angrily orders Cordelia to go after her, and Cordelia reluctantly agrees. Following her up the hall, Cordelia desperately hopes this encounter doesn't turn into a complete disaster. Lily bursts into the room, demanding to know if Craig has forgotten her after they've known each other since childhood. Annoyed by the interruption, the red-haired man looks up from his book and asks what all the yelling is about. As Lily expresses her disbelief that he doesn't remember her, he angrily orders someone to get her out of his room. Cordelia tries to gently lead Lily away, but Lily violently slaps her hand away, screaming not to be touched. Lily furiously berates Cordelia, claiming she has no right to act superior and that her bloodline makes her unworthy of even being a servant. As Lily calls her a filthy woman, Cordelia winces at the insult, only to be surprised when the red-haired man grabs her arm. His eyes narrowing with anger, the red-haired man sternly demands to know the meaning of the commotion. Lily asks what's wrong with him, but Craig sharply tells her to stay out of it. With a sharp motion, he forcefully shoves a stunned Lily away from Cordelia. He glares at Lily while holding onto a bewildered Cordelia, who looks up at him in complete confusion. The red-haired man maintains his stern, annoyed expression. Looking up at him with concern, Cordelia nervously says his name. Lily looks on, completely baffled by his protective behavior toward Cordelia. Craig explodes, shouting that his ears are going to burst and that the loudest person there, Lily, should be the first to leave. He dismisses her as a filthy nouveau riche brat, leaving Lily utterly shocked by the insult. He accuses her of flaunting a title bought with money, causing a heartbroken Lily to ask how he could say such a thing. A chibi Cordelia slyly thinks to herself that he seems to have forgotten his current body also carries the Abrams family blood. Craig angrily defends Cordelia, pointing out that she's from one of the 8 sacred houses, House Vasquez. He furiously declares Cordelia is fundamentally different from a commoner like Lily, whose face contorts in pain at his words. TSK. He clicks his tongue in annoyance, wondering aloud why he's being dragged into their fight. Lily begins to sob, whimpering that his words were awful and that she was just trying to... Unmoved, Craig coldly tells her to take her crying outside. He firmly takes Cordelia's hand and leads her toward the door, leaving Lily behind. Once they're alone, Cordelia internally delights in having seen an expression on Lily's face she's never witnessed before. She then states that her sole purpose in the castle is to maintain the connection with the Vasquez family. The red-haired man looks down at her with a knowing, almost amused expression. She cheerfully admits that no matter how much she hates the family, she's staying quiet to secure a generous divorce settlement. His expression shifts as he asks how much money she needs, catching her completely off guard. Before she can answer, he clarifies, asking how much money it would take to make her bow her head and obey him. Her smile vanishes as she considers his cold question about the amount of money. An oppressive, thorny silence hangs between them. Looking down with a pained expression, she thinks to herself that her worth is probably nothing. A grim memory surfaces of a man taunting her about affording her father's medicine if she annuls the marriage. In another memory, a young man begs her to marry for the family's sake, as she recalls her price wasn't enough to cover medicine or tuition. Shaken, Cordelia abruptly says she should leave for the day, prompting a confused Craig to ask what's wrong. He asks if he said something wrong and pleads for her to wait. Excusing herself, she reflects that she thought she'd thrown away all her pride, but realizes some of it must remain. Craig runs a hand through his hair, confused by her sudden shift in mood. Cordelia silently agrees that his confusion is justified. She calmly informs him she won't be visiting for a while and tells him to rest, leaving him stunned and demanding to know what she just said. The scene transitions to a wide, establishing shot of the grand mansion at night. Bang! In another room, a blonde-haired man slams his fist on a table, angrily questioning why he should care if she doesn't visit. He recalls his own harsh words to her, where he simply asked how much money she needed. An older, gray-haired man admonishes the blonde man, stating his question was cruel and must have hurt Lady Cordelia's pride after all her care for Sir Leonard. The blonde man scoffs, saying she was just talking, but the older man argues that preparing meals and speaking with a patient every day is exhausting work. The blonde man angrily retorts that he never asked her to do any of it, and claims she acted on her own. As the older man laments how poorly Cordelia was treated, the blonde man furiously asks if he's taking her side. The older man notes that she cared for her husband's possessed body, only to be treated this way, prompting the blonde to ask if he's grown fond of her. The older, gray-haired man shouts, "Sir Leonard!" But the blonde man angrily retorts, "What is it?" The gray-haired man seriously explains that Lady Cordelia knows his true identity but has kept it secret, proving she's a kind person. He recalls an image of a smiling Cordelia wishing him a good day, remarking that people like her are rare. The blonde man, Leonard, breaks into a nervous sweat, left speechless by the revelation. A silent moment focuses on Leonard's troubled expression. The gray-haired man reminds Leonard that their families have a history, noting that his grandfather, Demon Stryfen, formed a bond with the House of Vasquez. He advises Leonard to give Cordelia a warm welcome next time, leaving Leonard to silently ponder his words. The older man playfully badgers him, until a flustered Leonard blushes and shouts that he understands. Left alone, Leonard rests his chin on his hand, lost in thought. The scene shifts to the red-haired man sitting silently on his bed. Days seem to pass as he waits patiently, moving from his room to the hallway, cane in hand. He calmly sips a cup of tea. A faint, thoughtful smile plays on his lips. He holds the teacup in a moment of quiet contemplation. A servant throws open the curtains, and the red-haired man angrily shouts that it's too bright and demands they be closed. The flustered servant points out that he recently requested the opposite, but the red-haired man furiously repeats his order. As the terrified servant obeys, dark, angry energy swirls around the red-haired man's head. His eyes narrow with simmering rage. As the curtains are drawn, he thinks to himself that 4 days should be enough, leaving the servant utterly confused. With a sinister smile, he decides he's done waiting around and will take matters into his own hands regarding his new body. He abruptly stands and orders the startled servant to take him to the garden, and the servant quickly agrees. Out in the sunlit garden, the servant points out the walking path. The red-haired man dismisses him, wanting to walk alone, despite the servant's concerns about his health. Growing impatient, he orders the servant to leave. The servant departs, muttering about how severe his memory loss seems to be. Walking with his cane, the red-haired man enjoys being outside for the first time in a while. He spots a gazebo in the distance and decides to rest there for a bit. His stroll is interrupted as a purple-haired maid spots him from the bushes, her eyes wide with alarm. The maid hurries to intercept him, frantically insisting he can't go any further. When she explains the mistress and Countess Dahlia are having tea, he scoffs at the ridiculous reason and orders her out of his way. She desperately apologizes but holds her ground, making him realize there must be another reason for her panic. A sudden noise from ahead catches his attention, and the maid flinches in fear. He smirks grimly, thinking aloud that this must be the consequence of talking back. He pushes past the maid and sees the truth. Lily's mother is pouring a bottle of wine over a kneeling Cordelia's head. Drenched and sputtering, Cordelia calls out Craig's name, as Lily's mother smugly asks if he should be walking around. The red-haired man's face twists in pure fury as he internally rages at the scene. Lily's mother dismisses her actions as teaching manners, but the red-haired man appears, coldly questioning her methods. Lily clings to his arm, sweetly asking if he's still angry and offering to go hunting to make up. He violently shoves her hand away, shouting, "Don't touch me!" His golden eyes gleam with malice as he confirms a dark suspicion. Both women are stunned by his outburst, demanding to know what he said and who he thinks he's talking to. Standing before Cordelia, he smirks and asks who really has the vile bloodline, prompting Lily's mother to angrily question his sanity. Cordelia looks up, her green eyes wide with disbelief as she wonders if he's truly defending her. Lily's mother decides to overlook his rudeness, but Cordelia knows it's a lie, and the anger will be directed at her later. He retorts that the household has no respect for their superiors, while Cordelia worries about his fragile position. She gently touches his arm, trying to calm him down before he angers the matriarch beyond repair. He turns to face her as she pleads with him to cool his head, their faces mere inches apart. Staring down at her with an intense gaze, He asks how long she plans to keep up her current attitude. Cordelia sighs, internally exasperated, and wondering if he's decided to pick a fight with everyone today. Playing her part, she turns to Lily's mother with a pained smile, begging forgiveness for Craig's unwell state. He snaps, shouting, "Enough already," and declaring that the woman who should be begging for forgiveness is the one standing over her. Enraged, Lily's mother declares she is the mistress of the Abrams household and demands to know how he dares to speak to her like that. With a nervous expression, a chibi Cordelia grabs Craig's arm, urging him to stop and come with her. "Kaya!" He shoves her aside, angrily shouting for her to get out of his way. Lily's mother flinches, startled by his aggressive move toward her. With a menacing grin, the red-haired man grabs a bouquet of purple flowers and mockingly asks if she is truly the mistress of Abrams' castle, leaving her stunned. Standing beside a shocked Lily, her mother angrily asks Craig how he could say such a thing to his own mother. He raises his cane, leveling it toward her as he prepares to speak. He coolly accuses her of stealing castle funds right after his father died, causing her to stammer in denial. The accusation leaves both Lily and her mother speechless with shock, as Lily whispers her mother's name in disbelief. "Eek!" A group of servants hiding nearby gasp in horror, realizing the scandalous truth. He mockingly asks if that's what passes for a lady's duty in this house, prompting the matriarch to furiously call his claims nonsense. Lily pleads with Craig to stop, insisting her mother would never do such a thing. Turning his attention to Lily, he asks if she really doesn't believe that her mother stole the family fortune and used servants for her schemes. A trembling Lily insists that it's impossible, unable to accept the accusations. Her mother furiously accuses him of having lost his mind since coming back to life. She summons the guards, ordering them to escort the Count back to his room immediately. As two guards approach, Cordelia suddenly shouts the names Ken and Lenold. Craig smirks, threatening to list every man she's invited to her chambers. The guards, Ken and Lenold, freeze in terror, while Lily calls him a liar. Lily's mother stares in wide-eyed shock, her composure completely shattered. Flustered and sweating, she nervously asks where he could have possibly gotten such ridiculous ideas. He reveals he knows about the servants she sent to the underground, adding that they're still alive. "Ah!" She grits her teeth, lying that they've already left the kingdom. As her mother collapses in shock, Lily watches in horror, while Craig remains unmoved. Covering her mouth in disbelief, Lily's mother weakly insists that the accusations are not true. She begins to scream hysterically, claiming it's all Craig's plot to get rid of her. He coldly tells her that if she wants to be treated like a human, she'll stay quietly locked in her room. He delivers a final threat. If she displeases him further, he'll send her to the wastelands, leaving her terrified by the revelation that he remembers everything. Noting her pale face, he orders the guards to take her to her room, and they quickly comply. The guards drag the disgraced matriarch away as she wails about being the one who held the family together, while Lily looks on in utter shock. Cordelia watches them go, turning to Craig with concern and asking if he's sure this is okay, worried about the madam's inevitable retaliation. He pauses for a moment before turning his intense gaze back to a questioning Cordelia. He asks her why she let her mother-in-law pour wine on her, and Cordelia explains it was an excuse after Lily complained about being kicked out of his room. She forces a bright smile, brushing the incident off and insisting it was nothing. Ha! He scoffs at her casual dismissal, bluntly asking if she's stupid or has no pride. He chides her for thinking flattery will earn her money, telling Cordelia Vasquez that her stubborn pride won't change a thing. Hurt, she asks if he truly thinks she's being stubborn, finding his words harsh. He reminds her that as a member of the Sacred House of Vasquez, she doesn't need to grovel and should hold her head high. Her eyes flash with anger as she confronts him, demanding to know what he could possibly know about her. He appears confused by her reaction, guessing she sees her pride as useless. She turns away, unable to answer. Her emotions finally erupt as she reveals her own father sold her to this hellish house for a pittance and forbade her from ever returning. Clutching her dress, she tearfully asks what she was supposed to do and if he has any idea what life is like for a woman from a fallen house. Tears streaming down her face, she accuses him of living a life of luxury, completely ignorant of any real hardship. She declares that because she has no power to fight back, enduring and pretending is her only means of survival. Overwhelmed by her confession, she collapses to her knees on the garden path. She lashes out in frustration, calling him infuriating for his assumptions, and insisting that she does have pride and isn't stupid. He watches her emotional outburst, rendered speechless and looking slightly taken aback. He thoughtfully considers her words, his expression softening with understanding. Wiping a tear from her eye, Cordelia quietly concedes that he's right. Looking down at her with a gentle gaze, he begins to offer an apology, leaving her confused. The scene shifts to a quiet view of the mansion's exterior at night. Standing alone in the hall, Cordelia pauses silently before a large, ornate door. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, she quietly admits she was wrong and asks for his forgiveness. As a man's foot steps forward, Cordelia's voice is heard, wondering if he is offering her power. In a brief memory, the red-haired man looks down intently at Cordelia, who sits before him with a hopeful blush. Back in the present, she knocks on the door, questioning the nature of the ceremony before announcing her entrance. Ah! She opens the door with a start, surprised as she calls out for Craig, but finds no one there. Clack! An older man with gray hair and a mustache suddenly appears, warmly greeting Lady Cordelia as she identifies him as the Baron. The Baron excitedly takes her hands, revealing he has been appointed as the witness for her contract ceremony to become Lord Leonard's disciple. When Cordelia asks where the master is, the Baron explains that he just stepped out to wash his face and will return shortly. He proudly presents a room lavishly decorated with flowers, but Cordelia is confused, wondering where all the furniture has gone. The Baron worries the decor isn't glamorous enough, but a chibi Cordelia quickly insists it's more than sufficient. A man's voice coldly orders the flowers to be cleaned up immediately, stunning Cordelia and leaving the Baron heartbroken over Lord Leonard's disapproval. A man with his head and face obscured by a white cloth appears, declaring the ceremony a mess for lacking flowers and even a ring, as Cordelia recognizes him as Lord Leonard. He angrily threatens to burn all the flowers, causing Cordelia to address her new master with nervous hesitation. He questions her sudden change of heart, expressing his doubt that mere sympathy prompted her to become his disciple. He dismisses her choice as an impulsive decision, but she nervously insists that he can't take it back now. He walks toward her, explaining that the harassment she suffered was due to a lack of power, which becoming his disciple will solve. He arrogantly demands she say she forgives him for his earlier apology, and she internally fumes at his condescending tone. Forcing a smile, she reasons that it's a small price to pay and reluctantly agrees to forgive him. Her eyes widen in utter shock as she looks up and addresses him. The cloth is gone, revealing a handsome blonde-haired man with purple eyes. Hick! Cordelia is completely stunned by his true appearance, gasping, "No way!" She blushes, wondering if he's an angel, but he clarifies that he simply took on a different form for their important contract ceremony. He explains he can't use his magic in his other body and will use this potion-induced form more often, prompting her to think he possesses everything except a good personality. The blonde-haired Leonard smirks confidently. As the Baron fawns over how cool Lord Leonard is, Cordelia flails her arms, insisting she is not swooning. Leonard instructs her to follow him to begin the contract spell, and the Baron eagerly urges her to hurry. He begins the incantation, his hand and eyes glowing with swirling magical runes. He snaps at Cordelia, angrily telling her to stop hiccuping and ruining the solemn atmosphere of the ritual. Through her hiccups, a tiny Cordelia insists she can't stop, while a grumbling chibi Leonard wonders about his new disciple. He leans in and kisses her, silencing her hiccups as the magical energy flows between them. The Baron steps forward to take the witness's oath, a sphere of golden light forming between his hands. Cordelia is bathed in a brilliant golden glow as magical runes etch themselves onto her skin. The powerful magic swirls around her in a blinding vortex of light. The light finally dissipates, leaving sparkling motes floating around her. A chibi Cordelia timidly asks if the complicated ceremony is finally over. She feels as if letters were engraved on her body, and Leonard asks if she was unaware of what becoming a mage's disciple entails. She naively suggests a disciple is just someone who learns magic from a teacher, leaving both men dumbfounded. The Baron claps, officially declaring the master-disciple relationship while a menacing red aura radiates from the clearly annoyed Leonard. The Baron suggests Lord Leonard must be overjoyed, but Leonard curtly tells him to shut up. Turning to Cordelia, the Baron encourages her to learn slowly, and she nervously promises to do her best. He tells her to be confident, boasting that even the Rolfin Mages Association would be shocked to learn she is Leonard's disciple. Cordelia seems unconvinced, while the Baron silently fumes that she doesn't appreciate the honor, recalling how a Grand Duke begged for 3 days for the same position. The Baron sighs in exasperation, thinking it was stupid to expect anything from someone so ignorant, as Leonard looks on with a tired expression. Cordelia and Leonard look at each other in a moment of quiet contemplation. A bright, genuine smile suddenly spreads across Cordelia's face. Filled with determination, she vows to work hard for the rest of her life and asks them to take care of her. Leonard watches her earnest declaration with a stoic, unreadable expression. "Ah, that's right," he says, flicking her gently on the forehead. He tells her that to learn properly, she must show him respect from now on. Outside, as night falls, Cordelia shouts her vow to serve him as her master. The scene opens on a tranquil garden with an elegant white gazebo under a clear blue sky. Warm sunlight pours through the large windows of a lavishly decorated room. Soaking in the morning sun, Cordelia smiles peacefully, clearly in a good mood. Though she hasn't escaped yet, her heart races with the thought that she's one step closer to her goal. An exuberant voice suddenly wishes Lady Cordelia a good morning. Hands hold up a glass of water, revealing a tiny, merman-like baron waving cheerfully from inside. Startled to find him in her drinking water, Cordelia stammers a good morning back, asking why he's here so early. The tiny baron announces he's here to congratulate her again, reminding her that she'll be busy starting this afternoon. Cordelia explains that her emotional outburst yesterday wasn't an act but the release of pent-up patience, leaving the baron to wonder. The baron realizes her tears were real, but Cordelia dismisses his concern, saying it all worked out for the best. She suddenly looks up with a curious, "Huh? What?" Against a menacing backdrop, the baron suggests they compile a list of everyone who insulted her so they can make them suffer later. Confused by his sudden thirst for vengeance, Cordelia asks what she's supposed to be writing. She gives a strained smile and politely declines his offer for revenge, insisting she's fine. The baron sighs from his glass, lamenting that her decision is unfortunate. Clenching her fists with renewed determination, Cordelia declares that she will be supporting him. Looking pleased, the baron assures her that Sir Leonard cherishes her and will be an excellent teacher. Cordelia thoughtfully considers his words, admitting that yesterday's incident revealed a softer side to Leonard. A chibi Cordelia thinks cherish is too strong a word, but the baron insists she believe him. The baron reveals that Sir Leonard was restless and worried the entire time she was gone. Cordelia looks completely stunned by this unexpected revelation. She daydreams of her future, confidently conjuring a powerful flame in her hand. In another vision, she grins while masterfully wielding the power of ice. Finally, she imagines herself gracefully manipulating healing or nature magic. She smiles wistfully, recalling her childhood dreams of becoming a powerful mage. A flashback shows a former teacher berating a young Cordelia, asking if her head is a toy, and demanding she do math mentally. Humbled, she promises to try solving the problem again, realizing to herself that the baron is mistaken about Leonard's kindness. Leonard sighs in frustration as Cordelia asks for a simpler explanation. He exclaims in exasperation that at this rate nothing will happen even if she can see magic. Pushed to her limit, a chibi Cordelia throws her papers in the air, shouting that she just has to do it. Leonard watches her tantrum with a smug, amused smirk. With a saccharine smile, Cordelia sarcastically asks if he's going to insult her now, adding that she'll never do that to her respected master. "Stop messing around," he growls, threatening to kill her while she thinks she's tired and wants to rest. Deciding she needs to change the topic, she thinks of a new line of questioning. She looks at Leonard and asks him what he's talking about. Acknowledging him as the greatest magician, she begins to ask a question about his younger brother. Leonard cuts her off, coldly stating that the man she's referring to is not his brother. Taken aback, she awkwardly apologizes and rephrases her question. He pauses, his expression turning somber as he considers her question. She presses on, asking why that person would use his own mother as bait. With a pained look, Leonard reveals that the man dug up their mother's grave and stole her remains, as a gruesome flashback shows the act. Cordelia stares in horror, whispering, "No way." Leonard continues his dark story, explaining that a trap was set at the grave. He reveals that he was killed in that trap, a memory showing him being fatally wounded. He instinctively clutches his stomach, the phantom pain of his past life resurfacing. He vows to tear his enemy limb from limb and feed him to the dogs, while Cordelia watches in silence. Cordelia regrets asking, realizing his anger is terrifying and that she finally understands the depth of his pain. Leonard shoots her a sharp, intimidating glare. He angrily orders her to stop asking questions and clean up the scattered papers, and she quickly scrambles to obey. Cordelia holds a mysterious, ornate document she found, looking at it with a questioning gaze. Examining the document, she wonders what it is, realizing it's an Abrams report that was hidden in a book. Cordelia eagerly presents the report to Lord Leonard, asking if she can read it, and he nonchalantly gives his permission. Wow, she's stunned by the report's thickness, wondering if the Abrams family is filled with dishonest people. She asks Lord Leonard in disbelief if the contents are real, and he confirms the investigator isn't senile. A devious smile spreads across Cordelia's face as she asks to keep the report, plotting to use it for blackmail. Lord Leonard agrees, but sternly warns her not to let wine get to her head again. Flustered, Cordelia insists that getting drunk wasn't her intention. He chastises her, asking what would happen if wine addled her brain again, and she snaps back that he could have just called her stupid. Teasingly, Cordelia points out that Sir Leonard is just worried about her, but he retorts that she's an idiot. A small chibi drawing shows the tense standoff between a peeved Cordelia and an annoyed Lord Leonard. Ha-ah, Lord Leonard lets out a heavy sigh, thinking that she's too incompetent and must catch up to the other students. Aghast, Cordelia can't believe she has to catch up with others when she's already working hard on supporting magic. The mere mention of supporting magic sends Lord Leonard into a rage, and he declares he will never forgive her. A defeated chibi Cordelia sulks, thinking that just becoming a magic appraiser would be enough for her. An elder magician suddenly appears, informing a shocked Lord Leonard that since Cordelia is his first student, she should aim for the star by age 24. Cordelia looks completely bewildered, silently questioning what a star is. The elder explains it's a prestigious school she'll enter at 24, leaving Cordelia stunned by the news. Seeing Lord Leonard's grim expression, the elder asks why he's being so negative when she hasn't even begun. As the two men discuss how only 5 magicians have ever achieved this feat, a nervous Cordelia listens in. Eek! She panics, thinking they're planning to kill her with overwork, and shouts that she gets a say in the matter. Startled, she jumps to her feet in protest. Lord Leonard stands behind a nervous Cordelia, his expression unreadable. Cordelia stares ahead, a bead of sweat on her face as the tension mounts. Their discussion is cut short, as Lord Leonard coolly tells an unseen person to have their visitor come back another day. A man with a mustache bursts into the room with open arms, loudly asking after Craig. Cordelia stammers, trying to explain that the Master and Baron are busy and Craig is still recovering. The man stumbles toward her, making her recoil slightly. The man who was previously Lord Leonard now has red hair, and he eyes the newcomer suspiciously, asking who he is. Phew. The man introduces himself as Arnold Dillon, Helena's brother, and Cordelia notes with relief that Leonard transformed seamlessly. Viscount Dillon complains about the red-haired man's rudeness and pities his memory loss, much to Cordelia's silent disapproval. The red-haired man, Leonard, looks on with an unbothered expression. Arnold claims he just wanted to visit, but Leonard bluntly calls his attitude selfish. Stunned into silence, Viscount Dillon stares at Leonard's bold remark. Leonard smirks, asking if his statement isn't just common sense. Viscount Dillon nervously tries to greet Cordelia, who awkwardly responds while he grabs Leonard's arm. The Viscount insists on discussing something, but Leonard coldly asks if he would listen if told no. Viscount Dillon laughs off the tension, while Leonard remains visibly annoyed. Whoam. The Viscount pulls Leonard along, boasting that he had to run the Abrams family after Leonard collapsed. Leonard sits down on a chaise lounge, looking thoroughly unimpressed. Viscount Dillon warns him that Jared might take everything if he isn't careful, citing the many who oppose him. Leonard listens with a serious, thoughtful expression. The Viscount looks panicked, begging Leonard not to say such things. Leonard smirks, pointedly asking about family. The Viscount names himself and Helena, dismissing her embezzling as a sinful act, but insisting she's still Leonard's mother. Leaning forward, Leonard challenges him, asking if embezzling family funds is such a trivial matter. The Viscount vehemently denies everything, while Cordelia thinks the head of the house needs to change his attitude. As if hearing her thoughts, Leonard sharply addresses the man as Viscount Dillon, stopping him in his tracks. The Viscount looks offended, stammering about how rude Leonard is being. Leonard's expression turns to ice as he tells the Viscount not to act like family when they share no blood, declaring it makes him sick. A red-haired man sighs in bed, coldly telling his visitor to leave if they're done talking. An older man with a mustache trembles with rage, vowing to never ask the red-haired man for anything again. He storms out, threatening that Craig will regret this, as a worried Cordelia watches him go. Annoyed, Craig dismissively waves his hand, telling them to hurry up and get out. Bam! The doors slam shut, making Cordelia flinch in the now quiet room. She nervously turns to Craig, asking if it's all right and expressing her concern that Viscount Dylan will now join the opposition. Craig smirks, confidently asking if she really thinks he can't protect his position from a remote place like this. Despite his assurance, Cordelia still looks anxious and uncertain about the situation. Crash! Elsewhere, a vase of blue flowers is smashed as someone furiously yells, "You insolent brat!" A dark-haired woman in a green dress rushes to the enraged man, Arnold, asking what on earth is the matter. Fuming, Arnold asks the woman if she knows what Craig dared to say to his face. He relays Craig's insulting words about not interfering and how pretending to be family makes him sick, shocking the woman. Arnold continues his rant, enraged at being told to greet Cordelia and bow to a woman bought with money. The dark-haired woman grows thoughtful, sensing that something about the situation seems strange. While Arnold insists Craig has lost his mind, the woman disagrees, stating that Craig couldn't have come up with this on his own. The man realizes she's referring to the woman from the Vasquez family, and she confirms her suspicion that Cordelia is up to something. The woman points out that Craig's personality couldn't have changed so much, and Arnold adds that the formerly womanizing Craig never showed interest in her before. The woman notes Craig's recent concern for Cordelia is out of character, and asks if her staying close to him since he woke up is part of a larger plot. She speculates that it's easy to manipulate someone with memory loss, envisioning a demonic Cordelia whispering lies to Craig. She concludes that Cordelia is controlling Craig to usurp the Abrams family, and they must drive her out. She caresses Arnold's face, lamenting that if not for Cordelia's bloodline, she could have picked a better woman. With a sinister glint in her eyes, she declares they will have to get rid of Cordelia, much to Arnold's surprise. She questions the point of a useless daughter-in-law, deciding to show the, quote, trashy woman her true worth, prompting Arnold to ask her plan. She coldly plots to poison Cordelia, reasoning that since she's a glutton, no one would be suspicious if she ate something strange and fell ill. A wicked smile spreads across Arnold's face as he approves of the malicious plan. The scene shifts to a bright, sunlit hallway lined with elegant golden vases. Walking down the hall in a blue dress, Cordelia sighs, wishing she could skip class for just one day. Shaking off her fatigue, she reminds herself not to complain, as this is the opportunity she's been waiting for. She turns her head, looking over her shoulder with a curious and slightly confused expression. A handsome, silver-haired man with red eyes offers her a gentle smile. Cordelia continues to look back at him, puzzled by the unexpected encounter. The silver-haired man greets her warmly, asking how she has been. Confused as to why someone previously indifferent is greeting her, Cordelia politely asks when he returned from the southern mines. He smiles pleasantly, replying that he only returned a few days ago. The narration reveals he owns the largest trading company and is known as the Young Raccoon for the hidden intentions behind his smile. Cordelia is internally shocked, wondering why such a powerful man is suddenly greeting her. The man, now cheekily depicted as a raccoon, mentions hearing she's been spending time with the Count, and she explains she's caring for the recovering Craig. Her mind races with suspicion, wondering what he could possibly be planning. She offers a polite smile and suggests she should leave, as her teacher gets annoyed when she's late. The silver-haired man watches her go, asking if she doesn't think the Count has changed quite a bit. Wary of his probing question, she nervously deflects by saying, "Craig has always been a little moody." As another man rushes over, calling for Baron, the silver-haired man expresses his disappointment while Cordelia looks on, confused. The newcomer whispers urgently into the Baron's ear. As his subordinate excuses himself, the Baron bids Cordelia farewell, inwardly pleased that he got the interruption he was waiting for. Thinking she's already late, Cordelia hurries down the hallway. Clutching her scroll, she begins to stress over her homework, knowing the magical formula will be difficult. She continues to fret over the complex calculations as she rushes along. She suddenly trips on the hem of her long dress. Losing her grip, she watches in horror as her papers fly through the air toward a surprised young man in a uniform. Flustered and sweating after her fall, Cordelia offers a frantic apology. The man in the uniform smiles kindly, returning a lost item to a stunned Cordelia. Internally, she wonders why a knight of the castle is being so kind to her, a sentiment echoed by a passing maid. As if on cue, a maid with grayish-green hair offers Lady Cordelia a snack, but she politely declines. The maid bows, offering her services any time. leaving Cordelia completely baffled by the gesture. Her mind races with suspicion as she questions why even the maid is being so unusually nice. Later, her red-haired teacher promises not to get mad if she answers his question honestly, and she nervously asks what it is. With a cruel smirk, he holds up her mangled homework, asking if she's truly this stupid or if she just bumped her head as a child. He sadistically asks her to agree with him to make him feel better, while she trembles, protesting that she used to be praised for being smart. He scoffs, asking who praised her, then mockingly suggests it was for basic tasks like breathing before kicking her papers off the table. With newfound resolve, she vows to one day make him call her his precious disciple, just as a knock at the door interrupts them. Annoyed by the interruption, Cordelia turns and mutters an affirmation. "Gotcha." A maid nervously peeks in, presenting a letter on a tray for Cordelia. The maid explains the letter is an urgent express delivery, and Cordelia's expression grows serious as she looks at the red-sealed envelope. The red-haired man dismisses it as unimportant and tells her to continue the class. She clutches the letter tightly, turning her back to him in silence. He watches her, sensing that something is wrong. He asks what happened and who sent the letter, but she quickly hides it, forcing a smile and claiming it's nothing. He notes her face is paler than when he scolds her as she hurries away, still insisting everything is fine. Furious, she thinks that seeing her master act like this makes her sick, and that he shouldn't speak to a woman that way. He defensively retorts that his medicine ran out, but her calling him annoying is going too far. He looks genuinely flustered by her accusation as she glares at him from across the table. He suddenly recalls the seal on the letter, realizing with a jolt that it was the royal crest. He abruptly ends the class for the day, assigning her 2 papers to analyze for their next lesson. As an exhausted chibi Cordelia floats out, he leans through the door to yell that she can rest after she's dead. Once the door is shut, he leans against it, his expression turning thoughtful. As water splashes into a glass, an unseen person sighs, "I am tired." The Baron appears, asking Craig if he's already chosen Cordelia as his disciple, much to Craig's confusion. The Baron explains that shaping magic in 10 days is a feat even prodigies take months to achieve, but Leonard scoffs that it only took him 2 days. Smiling warmly, the Baron tells Lord Leonard that he's special. Leonard dismisses the praise, complaining that she struggles with simple calculations, but the Baron is confident she will improve with practice. Changing the subject, Leonard asks about the guild, and the Baron reports that Elfenbaum strongly opposes a funeral without a body. The Baron voices his concern that while he appreciates Leonard enduring this alone, the position of the head of the house cannot remain vacant forever. They have 3 months at most, the Baron warns, looking out the window as he reflects that their time is running short. Leonard declares that his first priority is reclaiming his original body, flashing back to a memory of his bloodied, silver-haired form. The Baron expresses his doubt, questioning if soul transfer magic is even possible, and noting it would be difficult even with all the magic stones of Elsheim. A determined smile crosses Leonard's face as he insists he will try everything he can. The image displays a golden, sun-shaped artifact with a brilliant red gem at its center. A second artifact is shown, an ornate silver brooch holding a large red stone engraved with a dragon, which the Baron calls the breath of the Crimson Dragon. The Baron begins to doubt their chances even with such power, but Leonard cuts him off angrily, demanding to know what he's implying. Enraged, Leonard asks if the Baron expects him to simply give up and watch Maximilian inherit the Atri name. The Baron's expression turns cunning as he quietly suggests they make use of Lady Cordelia. He repeats his suggestion with a sly smile, and the intriguing idea begins to form in Leonard's mind. The Baron's sinister suggestion hangs in the air, leaving Leonard momentarily stunned. A crimson energy swirls around Leonard's chest as he processes the audacious plan. Leonard turns back to the Baron, demanding to know exactly what he meant. The Baron begins to explain his plan, starting with the 3 holy artifacts. A vision shows a radiant Cordelia, glowing with divine light, surrounded by the powerful artifacts. Leonard confirms his understanding, asking if the Baron means to use her as a medium. The Baron explains that he is too old to handle the holy artifacts, but Cordelia's youth and talent make her the perfect candidate. Leonard looks away, considering the dire consequences of their plan. The Baron agrees, explaining that after becoming a medium, Cordelia will completely lose her ability to wield magic. A vision of Cordelia in a purple dress represents her unwitting role in their scheme. Patting his head, the Baron reassures a conflicted Leonard that Cordelia will surely understand the sacrifice. Leonard smirks devilishly, questioning the Baron's plan to strip her of her magic, but the Baron insists that ensuring Lord Leonard's well-being is his only priority. Leonard looks on with a bead of sweat, contemplating the heavy cost of his ambition. The scene transitions to the grand estate under a tranquil, starry night sky. 3 maids, led by a woman with grayish-green hair, smile warmly. Cordelia, holding her books, suspiciously asks the lead maid, Emily, about the 2 unfamiliar maids with her. Emily explains the head maid sent reinforcements, introducing the blonde maid as Mary and the other as Rachel. Cordelia is taken aback by the sudden attention. Overwhelmed by their offers of a bath or a meal, Cordelia internally questions why the head maid, who normally ignores her, is suddenly so helpful. As she tries to politely decline their services, the letter from her father slips from her dress and falls to the floor. Rachel quickly picks up the envelope, politely informing Cordelia that she dropped it. The letter reveals a demand from her father for 100,000 groschen for her brother's tuition, chastising her to act properly. Cordelia sighs in weary resignation, lamenting that her father's letters are always about money. With a cold smile, she instructs Rachel to throw the letter away and burn it, and Rachel happily obliges. Later, while relaxing in a bubble bath, Cordelia asks Emily if Mary and Rachel have always been so friendly. Emily giggles, explaining there's a rumor that the Lord is spending all his time in his room because of her. As she soaks, Emily's voiceover explains that gossip about their arguments and the Lord's subsequent isolation has spread among the staff. Huffing in the tub, Cordelia realizes the staff has misinterpreted events in her favor, imagining them fawning over her. Emily gushes that Cordelia's dedication in caring for the Lord has undoubtedly made a lasting impression on him. Cordelia forces a laugh, privately thinking she was actually praying for her own death, not his recovery. Emily's tone shifts as she reveals an update on the investigation Cordelia assigned her, announcing that the 2 targets have been found. Startled by the news, Cordelia bolts upright in the bathtub. Emily reports the descriptions. One has red hair with a crooked nose, and the other is a thin woman with black hair. A new day begins as a bird chirps cheerfully from a sunlit tree. Yawn. A desk piled with books and research papers shows the aftermath of a long night of studying. Cordelia yawns again while Emily brushes her hair, complaining that she barely gets any sleep with so many subjects to study. Emily suggests a light breakfast, and a tired Cordelia asks what they will be having. As Emily tends to her hair, the maid Rachel announces her arrival from outside the door, and Cordelia invites her in. Gotcha! Rachel peeks into the room and hesitantly informs Cordelia that the madam wants to have breakfast with her. Cordelia is shocked by the unexpected invitation to breakfast. She is immediately nauseated by the idea, thinking they've never even shared tea before. Despite her disgust, she sighs and reluctantly agrees to go. She stands for a moment, steeling herself for the encounter. Cordelia asks Emily to inform Craig that she'll be a little late, which Emily acknowledges. Hurrying down the hallway, she thinks about how much she truly does not want to go. She takes a nervous breath as she reaches for the ornate door handles. A servant waiting by the door bows, apologizing for making the madam wait. Craig's mother greets Cordelia with a blindingly bright and theatrical smile, leaving Cordelia completely baffled. Cordelia is instantly filled with dread, thinking the woman's smile is a bad omen while her inner self screams at her to run away. A blonde-haired man at the table greets her as Countess, adding to her surprise. She recognizes the other guests, Baron Lancaster, Dylan, and Lilia, and is utterly perplexed by their presence. Taking her seat at the far end of the long dining table, Cordelia wonders why this strange group has gathered. The meal begins as utensils clink against plates and soup is served. Sitting uncomfortably next to Dylan, Cordelia is so tense she can't even taste her food. Dylan raises his glass to her, remarking how tough it must have been to care for Craig alone, but she brushes it off as her wifely duty. With a disarming smile, the woman asks if anything else is bothering Cordelia. Cordelia forces a laugh, suspecting the kindness is just a show for Baron Lancaster, and claims she's been fine, thanks to the woman's care. Dabbing her lips with a napkin, the woman smiles smugly and agrees that Cordelia is right. A satisfied smirk crosses the woman's face as her plan unfolds perfectly. She asks if she's right, and a flustered Cordelia thinks that her accusation is obviously true. As Cordelia nervously eats her soup, Dylan watches her with a smug, silent grin. The woman changes the subject, slyly asking Cordelia if she has been corresponding with her father lately. Gulp. Cordelia grows weary of the endless questions, wishing she could just finish her meal in peace. The brown-haired woman in pink, Lilia, asks Cordelia what she means by her previous statement. Baron Lancaster listens with a bead of sweat on his brow, while the woman smiles in the background. Russell. Cordelia is stunned as she's handed a letter, asking what in the world it is. The woman reveals the letter's contents, demanding 100,000 linkets, and Cordelia realizes with horror that the maid she trusted was a spy. Lilia smirks, commenting that some habits like brazen theft can't be hidden. Dylan enthusiastically agrees, declaring they must drive Cordelia out immediately before she brings ruin upon them all. Shaking, Cordelia hangs her head in defeat at the dining table. Her expression hardening, Cordelia demands to know why a letter addressed to her ended up in the madam's hands. The woman dismisses her question, declaring there's a thief in the house, and that she now understands why Cordelia was sent there. Wham! Cordelia slams her hands on the table, insisting it's a misunderstanding and she never intended to act on the letter. Enraged, the woman slams her own hand down, calling Cordelia vulgar for raising her voice against such clear evidence. As Cordelia tearfully denies the accusation, the woman shouts that the letter clearly asks for 100,000 linkets and accuses her of repeated theft. A man with dark hair steps in, urging everyone to calm down and hear Cordelia's side of the story before judging. Baron Lancaster apologizes to the woman for the uncomfortable scene he invited her to witness. He declares there's no need to listen to excuses, asserting that the letter proves both Cordelia and her mother are shameless thieves. Baron Lancaster asks to see the letter, and Lilia agrees, certain he will understand once he reads it. He carefully reads the letter, his expression thoughtful. Looking up, he states he sees no problem, shocking the woman, who insists there is no clearer evidence. The woman coolly suggests a financial investigation will reveal the full extent of Cordelia's theft. Cordelia realizes they are serious about expelling her, understanding now why the influential Baron Lancaster was invited. A sudden realization dawns on her as she wonders why they're going to such lengths. They must be scared of her. A newfound confidence fills Cordelia as she looks out over the assembled guests. Emily's voice reports that rumors of Cordelia's influence over the master are spreading, with everyone expecting her to replace the current madam. Cordelia smirks, understanding this is a plot to reclaim the power that has shifted in her favor. Facing the madam, Cordelia begins her counterattack, stating, in that case. Her sudden shift in demeanor leaves the madam confused, who can only manage a quiet, huh? Cordelia stands serenely as Baron Lancaster and Dylan watch her in silence, unsure of what's to come. Holding her wine, Lilia smirks and asks if Cordelia is finally planning to confess. Cordelia turns the tables, suggesting Lilia should be the one to confess her crimes to be spared from exile, accusing her of stealing from the estate after her marriage. Smiling triumphantly, Cordelia thinks that memorizing the master's report was worth it as she lists priceless artworks Lilia stole and sold. Panicked, Lilia screams that it's a lie and demands proof, but Cordelia calmly asks if she should summon the treasurer. Lilia flies into a rage, attempting to throw her wine, but Baron Lancaster grabs her wrist, telling her to calm down. As he restrains her, Lilia struggles and furiously yells for Baron Lancaster to let her go. Cordelia bites her lip, watching the scene unfold with grim determination. Dylan defends his sister, telling the Baron not to believe Cordelia's baseless rumors and accusing her of spreading lies. Cordelia coldly dismisses his claim, turning the accusation back on him and leaving him speechless. With a chilling smile, she accuses Dylan of assaulting 2 married villagers, even providing their exact descriptions. Wham! Dylan smashes his fist on the table in a rage, his victim's faces flashing in his mind as he screams for her to shut her mouth. The dining room descends into tense silence as Dylan looms over Cordelia. Flustered, the madam wonders how Cordelia knows so much and tries to redirect the conversation back to Cordelia's supposed thefts. Cordelia smirks, feigning innocence and asking what thefts the madam is talking about. Twitching with rage, the woman loses her composure and screams at Cordelia to shut her filthy mouth. With a sweet but menacing smile, Cordelia asks if the madam is referring to her lovers, offering to summon them as witnesses. She continues, remarking on the madam's admirable and consistent taste for blonde men with blue eyes, causing the woman to flush with fury. Having lost all control, the madam shrieks at the man sitting across from her, "Baron Lancaster!" With a confident smirk, Cordelia says simply, I see. Baron Lancaster looks on as the furious madam accuses Cordelia of betraying them and tells her to remember her filthy background, shouting that Cordelia is the one who deserves judgment. Cordelia stands tall with a defiant smirk as the madam loses her composure, screaming, "You insolent brat." Suddenly, Cordelia feels a prickly sensation all over her body, and her throat begins to swell, making it difficult to breathe. A furious Craig bursts into the dining room, demanding to know how long she intends to eat, and a flushed Cordelia recognizes his voice. Craig looks down at her with a questioning expression. He strides toward the disordered dining table, as the other guests look on in surprise. The madam seizes the opportunity, telling Craig his timing is perfect before accusing Cordelia of trying to steal their money. She continues her accusation, pointing to the letter as proof, while Craig simply asks, "A letter?" Cordelia tries to explain that the madam intercepted a letter meant for her, but the madam cuts in, insisting she had a legitimate reason. Pash! The madam thrusts the letter at Craig, urging him to look at it. The letter's contents are revealed, a request for 100,000 linkets, and the madam declares she's speechless at the audacity. Delon and the madam erupt in outrage over the amount, but Craig coolly dismisses it as a trivial sum, asking if the vault even has that much. The madam recoils in shock, asking why he's taking Cordelia's side, but Craig ignores her and coldly asks Cordelia if the money is there or not. Stuttering, the madam admits the funds exist but argues they should be used for more important matters. Craig scoffs with a sharp-toothed grin, mockingly asking how that could be considered important. Cordelia finds herself appreciating his defense but admits she can't stand his arrogant attitude. Ugh. A sudden wave of pain causes Cordelia to clutch at her throat. She realizes with horror that too much time has passed and she can no longer breathe. As her vision blurs, she concludes they must have deliberately put something in her food. Remembering her pink dish, she collapses into Craig's arms as he asks what's wrong, while Baron Lancaster and Lilia watch in alarm. As the Baron asks if she's in pain, the madam coldly tells Craig to leave her, suggesting she ate something strange. Gasping for air in his arms, Cordelia manages to whisper, "Peanuts," leaving Craig confused. The madam and her allies look on with smug satisfaction, with the madam feigning pity that Cordelia ate peanuts despite being allergic. Whoosh. Realization dawns on Craig's face as he erupts in fury, screaming for someone to get a doctor. Cordelia lies limp and unconscious, a single tear escaping her closed eye. The scene shifts to a memory, showing a closed bedroom door before focusing on a book being opened. A young Cordelia sits happily in bed, engrossed in the book she is reading. A blonde woman asks if she snuck a book from their father's study again, and young Cordelia cheerfully admits her curiosity got the better of her. The woman warns she'll be scolded if found out, but Cordelia insists it's fine since no one will find her. Pouting, she adds that her mother never comes to check on her anyway. The blonde woman's expression turns somber as she looks down at her. She strokes young Cordelia's hair, calling her pitiful, much to the girl's confusion. The woman explains it's because Cordelia will never be able to have what she truly desires. The comment leaves young Cordelia stunned, wondering what it is she wants. Her sister's voice questions if a single book will bring her happiness when she's grown. The voice continues, explaining that wanting more is human nature, and knowledge only fuels that desire. She predicts their father will hinder Cordelia's future, wishing she'd been born into a different family for a chance at happiness. Young Cordelia protests, declaring her love for her mother, while the blonde woman offers a sad smile. Embracing her tightly, the woman whispers that she loves her too. Posh! The memory ends as Cordelia awakens in her bed to the sight of a relieved Emily. Emily, overjoyed, explains the doctor had declared her to be in very critical condition. Cordelia reflects on the harrowing experience, realizing she truly almost died. While she processes her close call, an animated Emily recounts how the madam dismissed her condition even though she was unconscious for 4 days. Gah! The news jolts Cordelia, who sits up in disbelief at having slept for 4 days. Wiping away a tear, Emily explains that the master frantically called every doctor in the area until one could save her, as they feared she might not wake up. Cordelia is left speechless and wide-eyed by the revelation of his efforts. She recalls the image of Craig's genuinely panicked face from the dining room. Musing on his reaction, she wonders if perhaps he's actually a kind person after all. Wham! Her thoughts are interrupted by a vivid, startling memory of Craig bursting in and shouting, "Hey! You're awake?" Emily is shocked to see Cordelia awake, who confirms she is conscious as the red-haired man looks on. A flustered Emily dashes off to prepare porridge while the red-haired man watches her leave. The two are left alone in the room, with him standing silently at the foot of her bed. He glares down at her with an intense, twitching expression. Noticing his stare, Cordelia weakly asks why he's glaring at her. He leans in and furiously scolds her for eating something she's allergic to, while she thinks how awful it is to be lectured immediately upon waking. As he continues to yell, she internally justifies that she couldn't refuse the dowager's invitation. He angrily tells her she should have refused, warning that the dowager could have used poison, leaving Cordelia speechless. Realizing he was worried, Cordelia bursts into a bright, genuine smile. Caught completely off guard by her smile, he turns away with a slight blush. Flustered, he runs a hand through his hair and relents as Cordelia peeks happily from under her blanket. He turns back, grabbing his hair and ordering her to stop being subservient to the madam, declaring he will handle things from now on. Cordelia looks at him with genuine concern, wondering how he plans to handle it. While she feels her body recovering, he makes a grim vow to get rid of those filthy people. The scene shifts to a grand estate at night, where an older man asks a white-haired man if Lady Cordelia is awake. The white-haired man confirms that she is, prompting the older man to express his relief. The white-haired man gazes at the sky, thinking with a faint smile, "But I'm still alive." The focus returns to Cordelia, who smiles peacefully in her bed, feeling grateful. The white-haired man, Lord Leonard, tells his subordinate that Cordelia seems cheerful enough, so there's no problem. While the subordinate expresses relief, Lord Leonard clarifies his concern wasn't about her being unconscious. With a hardened expression, Lord Leonard orders his subordinate to go and get Beluce. The older man bows respectfully, addressing him as Lord Leonard, and agreeing to the command. The man immediately panics, calling Beluce a dangerous freak, and worrying that summoning him will get them discovered. Lord Leonard dismisses his fears, stating they can't hide forever, as the man suggests summoning Lord Melbourne instead. Rejecting the idea of a conspicuous official, Lord Leonard says no one would be surprised by someone like Beluce, who he compares to a stray dog. The older man strokes his chin thoughtfully, admitting Beluce's reckless personality could indeed be a problem. Lord Leonard curtly dismisses his worries and reiterates his order to summon him. A close-up reveals a white-haired man with intense purple eyes, thinking disdainfully about this ridiculous castle. Overlooking the moonlit estate, the man vows, "I'll put an end to it." Back on the balcony, the older man acknowledges Lord Leonard's decision. Lord Leonard gives another order, an additional investigation into the Vasquez family, surprising his subordinate. When asked if he still suspects a link between Cordelia and Maximilian, Lord Leonard denies it. In her room, Cordelia tells Craig that her father sees her only as a source of money. She confesses that she began receiving letters demanding money shortly after arriving 2 months ago. She explains her fear kept her from throwing the letters away, though she regrets it now, as Craig listens intently. Finishing her sad story with a smile, Cordelia leaves Craig looking utterly shocked. With a sudden, mischievous grin, Cordelia breaks character and asks him, "So? How's my acting?" Elsewhere, the older man confusedly questions Lord Leonard's strange behavior. Lord Leonard decisively orders a thorough investigation into the current head of the Vasquez family, including their bloodline and history. Days seem to pass as Cordelia is shown recovering, peacefully sipping tea on a sofa. She enjoys the tranquil outdoors, reading a book and happily accepting a bouquet from Emily. Back inside, Cordelia comments to Emily that things have been too peaceful lately. She wonders where her enemies went, complaining she was waiting for a fight, while Emily insists this tranquility is normal. Emily leans in to whisper a secret to Cordelia about a scolding. She reveals with a grimace that the cook who put peanuts in Cordelia's soup was beheaded, leaving Cordelia horrified. Emily adds that he flew into a rage after Cordelia collapsed, making her blush as she assumes he's doing it because she's his disciple. A flashback shows a man with an eye patch and horns snarling in rage, shouting, "Again!" He stands over a terrified Cordelia, demanding she try to summon a flame once more. A montage of her training shows her repeatedly failing to cast a spell correctly as he screams that she's wrong. Gasping for breath in the present, Cordelia trembles in her bed, thinking she takes back all her gratitude being. His disciple is torture. Cordelia internally groans that she's stuck with the white-haired man all day and can already predict his next words. As he looks on, she struggles against her own impulses, knowing she should think before acting, but finding her body won't cooperate. Panicked, she declares she'll prove him wrong with her actions and tells him to stay out of her way, much to his annoyance. She frantically demands the magic to appear, asking if he wants her telling him what to do, leaving him looking a bit confused. Standing before him, Cordelia successfully conjures a tiny flickering flame in the palm of her hand. She proudly shoves the flame in his face, beaming as she asks if it's a success, and he grudgingly confirms that it is. She boasts that reaching his 5-year-old level on her first try is impressive, as he reveals he managed it when he was 5. A flashback shows a tiny 5-year-old Leonard effortlessly summoning a large ball of fire, noting the difference in size with a haughty HMPH. An imaginary chibi Leonard smugly asks if she's satisfied with his 5-year-old level, prompting an equally small Cordelia to call him infuriating. With a mischievous grin, Cordelia thinks that while she'd love to punch him, she'll let it slide today because he's taught her so much. She tells him she finally understands his lesson about learning with her body, and he explains repetition will ensure she's ready for anything. Her bright smile seems to catch him off guard, as he looks down at her with a soft, almost proud expression. He gently pats her head, warning her not to get carried away just because she's taken her training wheels off. Cordelia blushes slightly as his hand rests reassuringly on her head. Tugging on his vest, she eagerly asks if this means she can learn other types of magic now. She looks up with sparkling eyes, dreaming of casting a powerful fireball, just like the one he showed her. He crushes her hopes with a deadpan expression, flatly stating, "Not a chance." Ouch. He flicks her forehead and scolds her for being cheeky, but she defiantly insists she'll learn it eventually. Turning away, he opens a drawer while she watches, wondering what he's doing. He pulls something out, remarking that he was right to prepare it, leaving Cordelia completely confused. She watches with a questioning gaze as he announces that their lesson for today will begin now. With a menacing glint in his eye, he holds up a single, large carrot. A stunned Cordelia is shown wearing bunny ears, her mind blank with confusion. The image of a baffled, bunny-eared Cordelia lingers. In a cute chibi scene, he offers the carrot to a nervous-looking Cordelia. Wow, a flashback shows her in a field with bunny ears, crying that she found a carrot but wants to learn magic, while he yells at her to keep searching. In another chibi memory, Cordelia spots a carrot in her food, but Leonard shouts that she's wrong. The tiny duo argues over food, with her insisting on carrot power and him demanding she try again because he doesn't feel it. Blindfolded in the present, Cordelia's training continues as she identifies carrots and bread, then moves to potatoes, much to a chibi Leonard's confusion. She continues to identify an egg, an onion, and a green onion before letting out a frustrated scream. After a moment of intense focus on an empty plate, Cordelia's eyes snap open with determination. Her green eyes narrow with focus and understanding. Understood, she declares confidently, adding that it was easy, while he simply asks what's in it. Cordelia beams with a triumphant and radiant smile. She muses that she must be a genius for learning so quickly, thinking her master can finally rest easy. Her celebration is cut short when a chibi Leonard asks, "What else?" causing her to panic at the thought of more training. He runs a hand through his hair, thinking he's so tired that her head must be the problem, as she glares at him from behind. Huh. She retorts that her brain is average, and comparing her to a master is what's wrong, but he scoffs, asking whoever told her she was average. Trembling with frustration, Cordelia clenches her fists and tells herself to just be patient. Lord Leonard explains that this training is crucial so she won't be poisoned again by not knowing what's in her food. Realizing he's doing this out of concern for her, she decides to stop talking back. He suddenly explodes, demanding to know why she has such a defiant look, while she frantically insists it's her normal expression. A quiet, tense moment passes between them. Emily's voice interrupts from the doorway, announcing her presence, and Lord Leonard asks her business. Upon hearing Emily announce that Sir Jared Abrams has arrived, Cordelia's expression immediately hardens with suspicion. Lord Leonard looks on with a knowing, subtle smirk. Outside the grand estate, the red-haired Jared Abrams greets them warmly, suggesting they call him Jared now that they're family. Cordelia forces a smile, welcoming Jared inside while Emily watches with a look of concern. Jared asks where everyone else is, and an attendant explains that the madam is at the temple, and Craig is still recovering. Feigning concern, Jared dramatically calls his cousin's condition tragic. With a confident smirk, Jared tells Cordelia he'll see Craig himself, and orders her to lead the way, while she nervously suggests he rest first. Maintaining her composure, Cordelia instructs Emily to bring them some tea, and Emily obediently accepts the order. The household staff gossip amongst themselves as they watch the new arrivals. The staff anxiously whisper, speculating that Jared is there to take the Count's title, until a head maid sternly tells them to stop spreading rumors and get back to work. Lounging on a couch, a red-haired man, Leonard in disguise, waits with an annoyed expression. Jared laughs loudly, mocking the man for the rumor that he'd lost his sanity and forgotten him, much to Cordelia's annoyance. The red-haired man retorts that Jared is the one who's lost his sanity, sarcastically asking if his carriage ran over his face. Jared proudly reintroduces himself as Jared Abrams, the one who will lead the family now, before letting out a boisterous laugh. Annoyed, the red-haired man asks what's so funny, calling Jared an infuriating bastard. The red-haired man on the couch calmly remarks that foolishness seems to run in Jared's bloodline, infuriating him. Continuing his taunts, Leonard in disguise calls Jared impossible to talk to and too stupid to know better, while Cordelia observes his talent for enraging people. Enraged, Jared shouts that his insolent attitude won't last long, but Cordelia coolly points him toward the exit. Cordelia asks Leonard if his provocation was merely to test someone's patience, and he explains he needed to confirm Jared wasn't working for Maximilian. Cordelia asks if he was, and Leonard dismisses Jared as too stupid to be anyone's pawn, while a maid is brushed aside. Cordelia decides to just be polite to Jared in the future. Leonard questions why she would waste her valuable study time on a fool like Jared. Cordelia awkwardly explains that as the Countess, it is her duty to receive guests. Leonard dismisses her excuse, telling her to forget Jared and prepare for the next visitor, surprising Cordelia. Leonard's serious expression leaves Cordelia wondering who the next visitor could be. Cordelia stares back, waiting intently for his answer. Later, Cordelia enjoys a moment of peace, sipping tea at a table in the garden. She savors the long-awaited peaceful rest, but her bliss is shattered by Emily rushing toward her in a panic, calling her name. Cordelia asks what's wrong, and Emily breathlessly urges her to hurry, announcing that a very important person has arrived. A striking, black-haired man sits atop a white horse, his arrival marked by a flourish of sparkling blue flowers. From a distance, Cordelia watches as the esteemed visitor and his horse are greeted at the gates. Other noble ladies are stunned that such an important figure would visit their humble estate, while Cordelia watches thoughtfully. The black-haired man smiles charmingly, announcing that there is someone he wishes to meet. A narration explains that House Ingrian is a renowned knightly house, far surpassing the now faded prestige of House Vasquez. As the ladies wonder who he could be there to see, Cordelia realizes this must be the guest her master mentioned. The man approaches a blushing woman and asks for her name. She introduces herself as Lily Dahlia Abrams. Flustered, Cordelia watches as an older man dismisses her as merely his son's wife, and she inwardly scoffs at them, throwing her under the bus. Composing herself with a confident smile, Cordelia decides that no matter what, he is her guest. She quietly steels her resolve, murmuring the name Vasquez. Bam! She is suddenly startled as the black-haired man appears directly in front of her. Looking up at him, Cordelia is taken aback by how imposing he is up close. A woman scoffs that Lord Ingrian wishes to meet Cordelia, but he coolly asks if he's not allowed, silencing her attempt to call Cordelia useless. Lord Ingrian defends House Vasquez's honor and declares he is different, leaving the other women speechless, and Cordelia wondering if she's dreaming. He smiles and extends a hand to Cordelia, asking if she will show him around the castle. As he holds his hand out, the other women look on with expressions of pure shock and fury. Cordelia accepts, and the two walk down a grand hallway together. As they walk, Cordelia nervously wonders if it's safe, and questions his true motives for seeking her out. She stops to directly ask Lord Ingrian whom he truly came to see. He smiles, revealing he received a note with a white serpent sigil instructing him to visit Cordelia Vasquez. Cordelia's eyes widen in alarm as she realizes that if the note had used her master's real name, it would have exposed him. She reassures herself that his story seems plausible, so everything should be fine. Her moment of relief is shattered as a menacing, clawed hand grabs her shoulder from behind. She gasps in pain and shock as she is violently seized. Lord Ingrian's expression turns sinister as he grips her tightly, warning her not to use that name so carelessly while she struggles to get free. He threatens to cut off her limbs and feed them to the dogs if she's using his name for a foolish scheme, leaving her utterly horrified. As she recoils in terror, Lord Ingrian coldly tells her that if she understands, she should move, then commands her to lead on. Clinging to a black-haired man, Cordelia internally scoffs that he's fallen for her act and vows to make him pay later as she plots her next move. A red-haired man stands by a door, noting his guest is earlier than expected and ordering someone to show proper respect. The black-haired man, Belus, stands by silently with a look of mild irritation. An unseen person furiously roars, "How dare you pull such a stunt?" The red-haired man aggressively grabs Belus, calling him by name and threatening to deal with Cordelia for him. The red-haired man looks offended, demanding to know if Belus truly doesn't recognize him. Belus makes a disgusted face, retorting that there's no chance he'd recognize someone like him. Belus dismisses the idea of a soul transfer as absurd, but the red-haired man confidently asks if he thinks he's incapable of such a feat. Cordelia suddenly gasps in horror, pointing and shouting about her master's changing face. The red-haired man touches his face as his features begin to shift. His transformation continues as his hair turns from red to blonde and his eyes become a familiar purple. Now revealed to be Lord Leonard, he holds up a hand crackling with blue magic, offering to demonstrate his power. A sudden burst of magic fills the room with lush green leaves, catching Cordelia completely by surprise. Belus looks on in utter shock at the instantaneous forest that has appeared indoors. As Lord Leonard stands calmly in the magical forest, Cordelia marvels at the unbelievable sight. With his fist glowing with green energy, Lord Leonard asks Belus Ingrion if he is convinced now. Belus stares in disbelief, stammering Lord Leonard's name as Cordelia gives him a stern side-eye. Achibi Leonard angrily asks Belus why he still looks so doubtful, much to Belus's flustered confusion. Deciding to just sit and watch, Cordelia sips her tea while chibi versions of Leonard and Belus argue over the details of Belus's oath of fealty. While munching on a cookie, Cordelia mischievously recalls Belus begging to be taken in, which he furiously denies. Lord Leonard grins, reminding Belus of the time he thrashed him and knocked him into a river when they were younger. The memory seems to hit Belus hard, leaving him stunned and silent. As Lord Leonard smirks triumphantly, Belus suddenly draws his daggers and lunges forward in a swift attack. Pressing a glowing red blade to Leonard's throat, Belus declares that his true master should be able to withstand the attack, prompting a blushing Leonard to think he's insane.